Murph, you and I had talked with Will and Ronnie about fighting games. I think we need to pit ourselves against another podcaster.
Okay.
And today we have a podcaster just waiting in the wings. He's unaware of the surprise attack on him.
Okay.
Host of the Platformers podcast, Brian. What's up?
What's going on? Surprise attack.
I'll go low, you go high.
Little did you know I have a frame one parry and I counter both of you at the same time.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
It's amazing.
That's how I felt playing 2XKO.
Yeah, that game is ridiculous.
Anyways, Brian, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, my name is Brian Barnett. I've been in the games industry since 2017. I've been podcasting since, I think, 2016. So the Platformers, I think, is like 8 years old or something. We've done over 320 episodes of that show.
I think he's winning the fight, Murph.
Well, experience isn't everything. Sometimes, there's content and...
Sure. Let me ask, how has your podcast changed in 8 years?
Oh, man, that's a big question. Well, the lineup of hosts has changed 3 times. I'm the only original member that's still on it, which is appropriate because it's my show, and it's always been my show.
Like Ringo and his all-star band.
Yeah, Ringo was always the star of the Beatles. Everybody knows this. So, yeah, it's the exact
quite
same.
literally, he was the star of the Beatles.
Awful. This is terrible. Can we start over, please? Can we start over? Wait, can we start over, but without Murph? I think it would be better.
New host.
No, this is a surprise attack.
Like you, I was the original host, and Murph is the replacement host from someone else. I love you, Pavlos, but you're gone now.
Rest in peace.
He's in a farm upstate,
But so we started originally, the people that I met were members of like the Kind of Funny community, and we met in person. I'd been playing Destiny with some of them first, but we met at Kind of Funny Live 2 in San Francisco, and we met up at the food trucks and hung out and had a great time, and we were talking games and we had so much fun. I was like, let's do a show together. And we did. We started it. We started publishing it. And then one of my buddies, Joshua Mobley, got a job at IGN. And then he helped me get a job at IGN. And then he helped Chris, our third host, get a job at IGN. And then one of our co-hosts, Marty, had to leave because of some family stuff that was going on. And then Chris left, and it was just Josh and I. And then, Josh left. And then now I have Chris Cornelise, the Australian classic. I've never called him that before. I don't know why I did. And then Lucas White is also usually he's the third chair. And then Will
Lucas
Berger
is great. Lucas has been on the show before.
Yeah, Lucas is awesome. And then Will Berger is also a regular co-host. And yeah, so that's something that's changed. Our time, like the length of the show has gone quite differently. Also, I used to edit all of the shows and I don't anymore. Which is
I am jealous. That's
which is nice.
So good.
I mean, I was doing everything. Like everybody else would just show up and record. I was playing the most games. I was organizing who was going to be on the show. I was editing it. I was publishing it. I was promoting it. Like I did literally everything. And I was just like, this is a lot. I need some help. So that's something that's kind of changed. How we cover stuff has changed. Also, this show used to be like 3+ hours long, and it's like not anymore.
When did you guys go live? I think that's one of the biggest differences. Is obviously this show has the Daydreamcast has a very rough like release schedule. You do it almost every week at a specific time, and it's live. When did that happen?
Yeah,
has that always been?
Shameless plug here. Twitch.tv/Ribnax, RIBNAX, live Mondays at 7 p.m. Central.
Okay.
But so it was a couple of years ago when I switched. I think it was after I had done some Twitch streaming. Like I did some Twitch streaming. I did my first playthrough of Final Fantasy VI on Twitch. Like I'd never played it before and played through the whole game on there. That was a lot of fun. I did an entire sorcery only Dark Souls 3 playthrough on Twitch. And I was doing, I think we started live streaming the show before I started doing the Elden Ring 100% playthrough. But yeah, we started doing it because I was just like, I love interacting with people who watch on stream. And I had like a very small following. Like I'm nothing on Twitch. Like nobody cares, but it's fun. And I do have some regulars who tune into the show, and they, will pipe up and make comments and ask questions and things like that. And I really like that dynamic. Like I one of my favorite things is the reason I started the show was because I would talk to my wife about stuff I was playing and stuff. And this was before she was a gamer, really. And she'd be like, I love you. I need you to talk to somebody else. So like make a show. And I was like, all right, fine. And so
whatever it takes
I went
to
out
keep
there
the
and I
marriage
started
together.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's no fear of that. Like she's amazing. And she puts up with a lot, but I mean, so do I. So yeah, bro, don't worry. I have the best marriage of anybody I've ever met, so don't you worry.
How many people have you met?
I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Fun fact, I used to work at a mortgage company, and I would tell stories about like how I met my wife and our first date and stuff, and all of the older women at the mortgage company would be like, "Oh no, you can't say something like that to a woman." And I'm like, "Watch me."
Oh my gosh.
And it's like how I won my wife over, because I'm honest. And I'm honest without being harsh. Like I'm loving and honest. Like I was very complimentary to all the stuff that she cooked on our first date, and then like we got to the cookies and I was like, "No, I don't like these, are dry. I don't like these." But like that made the rest of my compliments real, because she knows I'm not just going to lie to make her feel better. So when I was raving about the steak and the potatoes and
those are real
other stuff, that I was honest. You know what I mean? So it gives you context for like, I'm not just going to sugarcoat it just to make you feel better. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I think
that works super well on a podcast. I wanted to say with the Twitch thing, to me, I think the best part of Twitch is like the random, however many commenters like saying one or two things that are like a tip or whatever, and like it feels like a real back and forth like with random people. It's like that's the fun part. Yeah. I don't know like if it gets super big or whatever. Like I don't know how much I would like just having a mass of people you can't recognize, or have it their comments just being a jumble. Like to me, I like it being an actual communal
dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. And I'm definitely of that mind, but I would honestly rather have too many people than too few.
Well, success is good too.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I get what you mean, but also, I don't know. I feel like once you get used to it, like it's not that hard to kind of like pick stuff as the chat is scrolling by. Not that that's ever been a problem I've had to deal with, but I've been on other streams that have been more popular, stuff like that. But
yeah. What kind of games do you play?
I play almost everything. I don't play sim racers. I don't really play 4X games, and I don't play sports games unless they have some sort of like an arcade thing to them. So like I played Golf Story and I played What the Golf, but I'm not going to play PGA Tour or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Like there's got to be a hook there that's not just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play I mean, I was almost going to say like I'm not going to play Madden. I literally used to play in a Madden league. But like I'm not going to play, you know, I'm not going to, but that was a short-lived thing and that was very quickly after I picked it up. But yeah, I play most things. My favorite genres are like platformers, strategy games, like third-person action, like more character action than like I would rather play like Kingdom Hearts or Devil May Cry than like God of War, like the newer ones that are more grounded. Like I like character expression. I like movement, you know, stuff like that. I also am a huge fan of fighting games. You know, as I've played fighting games with these guys before. Bro and I roomed when we went to Evo. Like, you know, fighting games are a big thing for me as well.
Yeah. So going into that,
what genre is Hatsune Miku? Logic Paint S?
Do we want to cover that now?
I think this is a great time. You said all these great games. Devil May Cry 3, Kingdom Hearts. Like,
I didn't say Devil May Cry 3. I did not say Devil May Cry 3.
Okay.
That's true. He said DMC, Devil May Cry.
Yeah, the reboot, of course.
I mean,
another masterpiece.
I will say, I actually really enjoyed that game. I know that's a hot take, but
I think it's a solid 7 out of 10 in a good way.
Yeah, so my favorite Devil May Cry game is DMC 4. So I'm a big Nero fan.
That makes sense. I like that too. I like
the Devil
like
Bringer is a lot of fun. So
yeah, Murph is going to crack out the whip.
On a scale of DMC 4 to DMC 2, where does Hatsune Miku Logic Paint S fall?
Excellent. A masterful segue. I really appreciate you, Murph. So between DMC 4 and DMC 2, you said?
Yes.
Hatsune Miku Logic Paint S lands.
What kind of combos is she busting out? Like, is it light, heavy?
She's busting out so many combos, you wouldn't believe it.
Okay.
And you definitely wouldn't believe it because Hatsune Miku Logic Paint S is a Picross game.
Oh, that's what the paint is.
Yes. So
I like Picross games. You're selling me.
Yeah, me too. Like it's great. So here's the thing. This is my first interaction with Hatsune Miku. It's literally just because I reviewed it. Like I got a code for it. So I've been playing it on Steam Deck. I'm really enjoying it. It's a nice palate cleanser. Because one of the games I'm going to talk about later in this segment, sneak peek, I have every achievement in, and so I'm playing that game still for fun, but I'm just like, I want to progress through this and complete this other game. And my wife has been huge into Picross games on her Switch, and this is one that I got a key for because she was interested in it, and I wanted to be like, let me check this out. And it's fun. You know, it's I don't know if people know what Picross is, but it's basically there's a huge grid, and on the side they'll have numbers that will tell you how many like block segments there will be in a row, and you have to kind of work your way through and like process of elimination your way to solving the puzzle.
It's almost like a Sudoku, but it's not that. But you're in that process. You make a picture, and by the end of it, or like in the middle of it, you're like, I'm seeing this picture develop, and then you build out like little pixel art. And
these were very big on the DS. I remember Nintendo pushing like Picross 3D, Mario Picross. I have a friend who's like addicted to these games.
Yeah, Pokemon Picross is another one. That was a lot of fun on the DS, or maybe it was 3DS.
That was on the 3DS.
I haven't played a ton of these. But this is one of the ones that I've been playing lately. This is probably like the second Picross. I think Pokemon Picross was the first one that I played, which I played with the stylus on the 3DS. I think they gave it away for like free or something. It was one of those where you had to like get crystals for waiting an amount of time or something to do new puzzles, which I hate that mechanic, but yeah, it's fun. There's good music. It's, there's a little chibi figure in the lower left-hand corner that kind of dances around as you finish stuff.
That's what Miku brings to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask in terms of the Miku-ness. Like, so other than the little chibi person, is the art Miku-esque? And I'm sure the music is Hatsune Miku music.
Here's the thing. All I have are assumptions because this is my first interaction with Hatsune Miku, so I really don't have any context. So unfortunately, I cannot answer those questions. I would assume the music is Hatsune Miku, but I don't know. And
you don't have her, chart toppers.
No, I literally have no idea. Which the funny thing is that one of my previous co-hosts for the platformers, Chris Shriver, is a huge like dance and rhythm game person, and so he has played tons of Hatsune Miku games and is a big fan. But me, not so much. So I have no dog in this race. It's just a Picross game, and I like Picross games.
Yeah.
So.
Murph, do you have a magical segue for World of Goo 2?
Paint is sometimes latex-based, and that causes it to be rather globby and goo-like.
What?
Excellent. This is the best segue I've ever heard.
Yeah. That is the worst. Never mind, continue. Wow, Murph, you played World of Goo 2.
I did. They made a second World of Goo, and longtime listeners of my tenure on the podcast would know that was like my third or second episode on this.
But this is like one of your favorite games ever.
Oh yeah, World of Goo is like top 7 or top 5, definitely. Like I opined greatly on the episode we did about it. So
I think it's probably in the top 10 best Goo games ever.
We did a whole variety minute on Goo games.
Did you really?
You are probably correct.
Wow.
I think its main competition was the Blob and the Ooze on Sega Genesis.
Well, okay,
Those
now
are probably
here's
the ones.
Okay, so here's another question. Did you put Portal 2 in that list at all? There's a lot of Goo in Portal 2.
Murph likes Portal 2 as well.
True. Yeah, well, see, if you were up on your Portal lore, like you are not up on your Hatsune Miku lore, you would know that that's not goo, that's gel.
Okay. All right. We mentioned Gooigi at least. So.
One man's gel is another man's goo. I'll just leave it there.
So World of Goo 2, this is a sequel coming out like 15 plus years after the original. It is the original team from 2D Boy making this. And what's very apparent from like stage 1 of World of Goo 2 is it assumes that you have played and also loved the original World of Goo. It is very self-aware in that way, in sort of 2D Boy's way of doing like light social commentary and light ribbing of like consumerism and capitalism. This very much leans into that. The original World of Goo was making fun of industrialism and mining bubbling crude for needless like consumer products. This is now saying, actually, the new bubbling crude is millennial nostalgia.
I will say I did not expect when coming on this show to experience a Beverly Hillbillies reference in the show. That's wild. Truly wild.
I like Texas
We played
tea.
fast and loose.
Yeah.
So this game, it evolves the World of Goo mechanics. In fact, you're doing very few, like, actual building towers or bridges with your goo balls. It's the big mechanic in this one is fluids. You have these conduit goo balls that when you build them into fluids, they'll suck them up, and then there are different goo balls that will turn them into a stream of sludge that it will spray out. Oh, one more. Okay, sorry. Audacity just froze on me and my heart stopped.
Well, go ahead.
Or you need to make like a sort of receptacle for liquids to fall into. There are these cheese blocks that you manipulate to stem flows of lava. So it definitely hits the ground running with all these new ideas.
So I've got 2 questions. first of all,
You mean you have goo questions?
I'm
sorry.
Ho, ho, ho.
Shut up, y'all.
This guy does podcasts.
True. You can tell by my jokes that I podcast and I am a father. You can tell.
Yeah. The moment I turned 30, I started doing slightly more dad jokes, and I was like, "Oh, I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
This is bad vibe."
You got to embrace it.
The two questions. First of all, the first World of Goo also wasn't always about structures. So like about I don't want to say a number, but 3/4 of the game was probably structures, and then 1/4 of the game was creative stuff here. So let me ask, in comparison to World of Goo 1, do you feel like it's like a satisfying experience into itself that you can't compare them? Or do you feel like, oh no, there's clearly a pacing issue with this one? Or like, how does it stack up?
So, that ratio you said of like 3/4 is just building, 1/4 is like puzzlier, I would say it's the reverse for this one. Mm-hmm. Most of the stages here are very much about cause and effect. It's like, it's not enough to know how to build a structure. It's like you have to figure out what, like, I've built over to this puddle of lava. Now what? And you kind of have to scan around the stage and try and figure out the flow they want you to do. A lot of these levels are much bigger. Mm-hmm. And it also means there's a lot more one-off mechanics. One standout level to me is you're in this pitch black maze, and you have these 3 reusable goo balls that act as a source of light. So you're building your structure through a maze, and trying not to put those reusable light balls in a place where if you pull them away, it's going to compromise the integrity of your structure, and you're trying to find the exit. But that mechanic is only in that stage. And then, so you remember how in the original World of Goo, once you got to Chapter 4, it completely changed up the gameplay on you? Mm-hmm. World of Goo 2 does this, and I'm not really sure if I should spoil how it does it, because it's incredible, but I also kind of want to, because it's incredible. So anyone that wants to experience that raw, just like, look at the show notes and skip ahead.
Giving me more editing work. This is great. I love it. Continue.
It's just... you time travel into the future, and the stages of Chapter 4 are future World of Goo sequels.
Oh,
where
that's
they
cool.
have gotten incredibly stale, where it's like, World of Goo 7, Paper Goolf, where it has a Paper Mario aesthetic and it's a golf sim now. Or World of Goo 11, Shadows and Slime, or whatever it is, where it is a point-and-click detective noir.
So there's a bit of a cynicism there of like, we don't want to keep fucking making these. Please don't make us make a World of Goo 7.
Yes. And
go ahead.
So that cynicism sort of runs through it. A lot of the stages in World of Goo 2 are very clearly like set in the same locations as the first, but there's like this emphasis on like, this used to be a cool place, but it's pretty old and decayed now. Everything's kind of stale. Don't you feel that this is stale? Mm-hmm. But all that said, even by the very end, I'm going to admit, I got a little misty-eyed when they brought back my boy, the sign painter.
Oh my gosh.
And he just kind of has this monologue where he's like, at the end of it all, it was pretty cool that they made a second World of Goo.
Just like, man, I get it. Okay, that kind of seals it. Okay, so the two things I wanted to say is, I think sequels always are getting my brain going. I've been playing Fear and Hunger Termina, and I've been like considering things in my head. I'll talk about it later in a different podcast. But like, you see the priorities of a developer change as they go. So when you say that there have been more puzzly elements and more physics simulator elements that they've doubled down on in this version of the game compared to World of Goo 1, that sounds like their developer trajectory. Because didn't they do like a Fireplace game that was also all physics based and like
Little Inferno.
They
did Little Inferno and Human Resource Machine. And 2D Boy often does this thing where they get you in a gameplay loop, and then in the last or so act they'll completely change it up. The last act of Little Inferno turns into a platformer. Mm-hmm. I can definitely still see this game being divisive like the first, because sometimes life's too short to be playing a physics-based puzzle game and having to deal with that. I am not going to pretend that World of Goo, like, fixes those sort of quirks of the physics goo engine. I'll say this one is a lot more forgiving with your ability to go back turns and rewind time to undo mistakes.
Excuse me, back turn? What? As a Leo player in Guilty Gear, you caught my attention.
The last thing I wanted to say,
hold on, the listeners at home aren't going to know how funny that was. Brian has been sitting here he took off his glasses, he's sitting here with his eyes closed listening to everything, and then suddenly he woke up when he heard the phrase back turn.
Just, I sleep, I wake up.
I sleep. I hear back turn. Hey, you got my attention. Wait, you had my what is the quote? Yeah.
Which quote?
You had my. It's from.
Curiosity.
It's from. Yeah, you had my curiosity.
You had
now
my curiosity. Now you have my erection.
Stop it, y'all. I was gonna.
I know we're not streaming this live, so I could.
Oh no.
No.
More editing work for me. I love it. Continue. No.
I said all I need to. I think right now, in terms of games I have played that actually released this year, World of Goo 2 is at the top of that list.
Okay. He almost said, you heard that, right, bro?
I said my last question.
Sorry. I was about to say, you heard, bro. He almost said World of Goat.
World of Goat. Here's the thing that I want to know. When you started this little spiel, you made it sound like this game was for you as an audience. How good is this for new players? And with the subject matter you're talking about with nostalgia and like we don't want to keep making World of Goo sequels, they're in a way, I mean, they're criticizing you in a heartfelt way. Like how approachable is this for someone who did not play World of Goo 1?
I think it would actually be fairly impenetrable from like the metatext angle. If you want to go in and just do puzzles, you can just do puzzles. But it is very like vocal and in your face about like, we know you played World of Goo when you were 10 years old in 2009.
Very specific,
or you played World of Goo 1. Yeah. It's like, I forget like one quote it did, but it said, "Oh, you're probably this kind of person." And I was like, "No, that is me. I am this kind of person."
They called you out. They know their audience.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
You know who else knows their audience? id. id knows their audience.
Night Dive Studio?
Yes, I have been addicted to these remasters, and I have played Doom 1 and 2 Remaster. I love that they also come free on Steam if you already own the games. Yes,
really? That's
please.
Cool.
Yes, you can just have them. They're great. So this is Night Dive Studios, another remaster. I think it kind of mattered a little bit less than the Quake ones, in my opinion. I think the multiplayer angle for it, like the matchmaking system, is welcome, and I think it does this thing where it collects mods and you can access mods. I don't feel like it's all the way there. Like, I look at the mod selection, and it's just like the best level packs, ultimately. There's not a lot of texture work or total overhauls or anything like that. It's just the bread and butter, you want some Doom levels, here you go. That being said, the remaster's really good. The new episode is really good. It also includes Sigil, and through the mod, template or whatever, you can access Sigil too. Stuff like that's super fun. I love it all. Doom 1 and 2, 10 out of 10, 2 thumbs up.
Oh, I can't believe this. It's unsupported on Steam Deck. Come on, guys.
That's rough.
Wait, hold on. Doom runs on everything.
I
was literally going to bring that up. That was my question. In genuinely, it's a meme. Doom runs on everything.
Yeah, I literally scrolled down because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy these," and then it's like Steam Deck compatibility unsupported.
Oof,
that's bizarre. But so what is the selling point for a Doom remaster then? Is it, like you said, the texture and mod support they did?
But I mean, I guess this is complicated. Because you can access all the mods and many more mods on your own. Like a good example is last year there was a really famous Doom mod called My House, and it's I highly recommend it. But I also highly recommend like accessing the Google Doc in which you download it instead of the Doom 1+2 mod pack, because it has supplemental material where you learn all the bullshit lore about the fucking
lore.
Yeah, but like that helps. That contributes to it. It's stuff like that where it's like I don't really know if this is a better format than literally just downloading Doom. But that being said, it's a much better package, because like if you downloaded Doom on Steam a year ago, you would be getting the DOS version, and then you would probably be downloading GZ Doom or something, and then you would be running the game through that. So this is better in that sense, where I could literally just go on Steam and click it. But like,
okay, so it's more like less accessibility in the fact like Doom is everywhere, more accessibility in the fact that ease of use.
Yeah, I would say.
You just click and go.
Yes, 100%. You're not playing the DOS version of Doom. You are playing a better version, which does matter and does help, but also like, it was free. I didn't pay for it, so I don't care.
That's true.
It's great.
That's true. I mean, it's hard to complain with Night Dive Studios remasters, because they just, like, there are some specific boomer shooters in the world, and they are bringing them all back to modern consoles. We're getting a Thing remaster.
Wow. Night Dive does great work. And the new content in all of these games has been really, really good. Machine Games also contributed a lot to the Quake. They have Quake levels in those, and Machine Gun Games did some of those, but all of that stuff is high caliber, high class stuff. Would recommend.
Okay.
Nice.
If it was bad, we might have started a riot.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna go walk into the sea. I'm sorry. I'm so
Brian,
sorry. I'm so sorry.
Please help me. Please. I'm dying here.
Okay, I said before I said before the show that I have the technology to shoot people through the internet. I'm so sorry to tell you. I was bluffing, and I don't have that, but I wish I did.
Yeah.
Where's your power now, old man?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We played 2XKO.
We did.
Is that the official pronunciation? Because I saw one streamer who said it's 2 times KO.
You know what? I'm just gonna go out there and be brave, and say it's Twoxo.
How could you be so controversial and so brave?
Wasn't that Biggie Small's rival?
Yes.
Twoxo Shakur?
Yeah. Yes. It was. Wait. Hold on. Let me put my hat back on before I say.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, it was. And I would know because I'm from Los Angeles.
Because I shot him.
I actually because I shot him?
Internet.
I definitely did not shoot him. Although I will say, I am one of the people who likes both Tupac and Biggie. I'm from the West Coast. I used to live like 10 minutes from Compton, and I have no problem with East Coast rap. I think they're both good.
I agree.
So 2XKO. This was the beta they ran for like 2 weeks. We all got some time in with it. Bro and I did some duos, some casual duo matches. How do we feel about this? I'm getting more of my fighting game cred, but I would still consider myself pretty casual to the genre. You guys have been at this longer. Mm-hmm. And this is a very different kind of, not just fighting game, but tag-based fighting game with the simple inputs and this fuse system. Like, how do we feel about this?
Bri, you should start, because Bri, you are also, I would say your best game and some of your best stuff is Dragon Ball Fighter Z. So yeah. That's semi-close, but even then, this game is radically different.
Yeah, it is really different. The interesting thing about that is that, yes, you're probably right. My best fighting game is probably Dragon Ball FighterZ. Although I will say I'm getting better at Guilty Gear Strive, so I don't know that that's 100% true anymore. But yeah, the funny thing about that is that that was my first tag game. So 2XKO, I'm still relatively unfamiliar with tag games apart from Dragon Ball FighterZ. I almost decided to talk about this week, but I've also jumped back into Marvel Infinite and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 recently. And I did a preview for the Marvel vs. Capcom collection at EVO. So I have been playing more tag games recently, and playing like X-Men versus Street Fighter and like Marvel 1, those are closer to 2XKO than something like Dragon Ball.
I would agree with that. Yes.
It is. It's not as crazy. It's not as fast paced. I mean, it is kind of wild. Like so I play Echo and Ari, which is a really.
That's who we played.
What's that?
That's who we played technically. I played Echo. He played Ari.
Yeah. Did we play? I feel like we played actually.
We tried, and then I guess that's its own topic. You tried, and then you couldn't.
Oh my god! Yeah. That's I have some bugaboos with this game. Like I have some issues. I was doing combos, and it was just like minimizing my game and then maximizing it and turning it into windowed mode.
Oh my god!
And then turning it into full mode. So there's a lot of weirdness, and I was trying to rebind my buttons because I use a leverless controller, which is not what this game is designed for. And every time I would hit down or up, it would move 2 spaces instead of 1. It was really obnoxious and annoying. But this was only the alpha lab. I will say, of what I played of the game, I like it. I think it is. There's a lot of different types of games that you can play in the realm of fighting games. Dragon Ball FighterZ is something that I think basically anybody can jump into and have some fun. There are auto combos for like all the major buttons that make it really easy for you to just jump in, pick up, and play. And I feel like to an extent that is true of 2XKO. But there is also like a depth of nonsense that you can get up to in this game that I think is not necessarily present in other games. There's a thing in the fighting game world called Kusoge, which is the type of fighting game that is just absolutely pure nonsense, like unhinged, unbalanced, really crazy, and like you're never gonna block this mix up because it's like 7 layers deep and it's just really complicated stuff, really difficult to master. But if you know what you're doing, you can just completely oppress your opponent. There's a degree of that in this game. But I think that generally, this actually would be a good place to jump in if people are interested, particularly if they are like big League fans. I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with jumping into this, particularly because it's a free-to-play game, which I think is going to be an appeal to a lot of people. One of the big things that I love about Dragon Ball FighterZ is how it pulled in a bunch of people from the various corners of the fighting game community. There were NetherRealm champions from Mortal Kombat, like Sonic Fox. There were big like Melty Blood and like Under Night people like, Goichi and other people like that. There were people from the Smash community like Leffen. There were tons of people who played Street Fighter like Punk who came in and played Dragon Ball FighterZ. And I feel like Riot stuff isn't as like popular as Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is like ridiculous, like iconic. But I feel like to a lesser extent, this game does have an opportunity. And I think that with the polish and with the aesthetics and with the kind of star power and style of this game, it does have some potential. And I think that with the gameplay, it has enough meat on the bones to still satisfy, like the fighting game sickos. That's my opinion.
I always find modern controls and simple inputs interesting because yes, they get people in, but that doesn't stop people who know how to play fighting games from breaking it. And I think that's the actual scary issue. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
people don't like to lose. It's all those elements. It being free to play is a huge thing for it, but I'm unsure how many people are willing to put in the time. Then again, MOBAs are probably the other one with a high skill floor, or at least a high, like, you have to put in a lot of time in a MOBA to like a MOBA, you know what I mean? So, yes, I think as of now there is a lot to be ironed out in terms of combos and all that. But can all be fixed because this is an alpha. The one thing I want is more characters. I need like more character diversity.
Yeah.
There's only like what 6 characters, maybe 5.
Yeah,
characters
there's
or
6.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I like the 6 characters, but some more than others, and I would just need more variety. But that can all be fixed in a year from now. You know what I mean? Let me ask you, Murph, as a person who has just started the genre and also started on modern controls, but now you're Guilty Gear striving. How do you feel about simple controls now? Like, do you feel like you're like, oh, that was good for getting me in the pool, but now I don't need them, and now I think it's better that I don't have them? Or like, where do you stand on that?
I mean, that would require me going back to Street Fighter 6, which I may do for Terry dropping. Because I gotta support my guy. The thing with Street Fighter 6 is, looking back, I think it was less having to do the motion inputs and more like, my brain can handle motion inputs or it can handle 6 buttons. I can't do both.
Yeah.
So Street Fighter 6 just makes more sense to me playing with modern controls. Whereas like and also I think the input reading in Street Fighter 6 is like bad.
Yeah, it's not great.
Like whereas like in Guilty Gear Strive, like I'm busting out DP motions and stuff like mid combo like nobody's business, you know.
There you go. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Something like 2XKO where it's much more hectic and it's like the snap decision and everything. I think the simplified controls help me like execute those big cool combos you saw pasted all over Twitter during the beta. One thing, FGC community, is if you're going to post a crazy combo on Twitter, please leave notations for what you're putting in.
Yeah.
Rather than leaving me to go frame by frame and figure out what inputs you're doing.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
Let me ask this, for more experienced fighting game players, does the notion that this game has, like, I think they're going to patch out the TODs, the Touch of Deaths, that we saw during the beta and such, but it's still a game where you can go from, like, full health bar to barely, like, ghost pixel from, like, one touch. Does that sort of harm this game's playability in a free-to-play space? Like, are people going to get on, like, oh, let's try out this free-to-play game and just get utterly destroyed in an online match and never want to pick it up again?
Okay. I think that depends on a couple of things. So one, that depends on how good the matchmaking is. Like, because so if their skill-based matchmaking is not good and people who jump in and are new are just going to get killed immediately, I think that is going to hurt onboarding for new players. And there were people even during Alpha Lab who were doing that sort of stuff. So when people jump into the full game, if there isn't a huge change, which I don't expect there to be like a huge sea change in how the way that the game plays and which combos work and which ones don't, there's going to be a bit of that when the game starts, even at the very early level. But the people who are really good should rise up the ranks pretty quickly. And then newcomers would be pitted against people who are not that good. So hopefully that's not the case. But there's also another thing, which is it's not the only game that is true with. Like, Strive is a high damage game. Previous Guilty Gear games were high damage games. You can very easily get sparking TOD'd in Dragon Ball. Marvel is a famously high damage game. Like, Street Fighter isn't necessarily that way unless you're playing against like Marissa, and then you're definitely going to get two-touched, or Zangief or something like that. But I think it kind of depends. It depends on some stuff like that. I feel like that's going to dissuade some people, but it might not be that bad because particularly with which characters you play, like the touch of deaths with Yasuo are like really hard to do. Whereas, the ones from Ari are like a little bit easier. So I think it's going to depend on what characters that you're playing. People like Darius are going to hit hard. People like Braum are going to hit hard. But other characters are not. It's going to take a little bit more time for people to get those combos up, I think. And so I feel like that might not be a super huge deal breaker for people, but I might be mistaken. Bro, what do you think?
I have two things. Number one, I completely agree with you, Brian. I think the core issue is actually not how high damage something is. It should actually be higher. I think the actual issue is that time. When you're doing a combo, a lot of people, they did this on, I don't know if it was on Twitter or what, but there was like a thing where people don't like over like about 7 seconds. Like a normal person doesn't like 7 seconds of not engaging. So it's not that the TOD combos are killing you in one touch. It's the fact that it's taking fucking like 15 fucking seconds. You're sitting there and you're going, what am I supposed to do? Oh, nothing? I guess I'm dead. Yeah. And you're getting angry at the game for so long. Guilty Gear Strive, when you die, it's like that. It's so fast.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, we're back in it. We're doing it. And then you're back into playing the game and it doesn't matter so much. So I think that's the actual issue is that it needs to be much snappier in all forms. And this goes into the other aspect, which is I think a lot of what you said almost doesn't matter because it's not a normal fighting game developer doing this. It's Riot Games, right? So the way Riot does things is kind of where I'm a little worried because they may try to do things in a way. I mean, they seem to be very active in listening to the community, which on one hand is good, but on the other hand, sometimes the community doesn't know what the fuck it's talking about. But they are very quick to release patch notes. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a game that's going to be patched often. They will listen to player feedback possibly too much. And things like the matchmaking, we don't know what the matchmaking is going to look like because this alpha really pushed lobbies. So depending on how hard they push lobbies, it may be an awful idea. So it's really going to depend on how Riot operates as a developer.
That's interesting. I don't want to belabor it too much. That's an interesting point. Games like Multiverses actually were patched so much that like the community just kind of fell off because you'd play a character and it's just like, okay, they got nerfed and then 2 weeks later they got nerfed again. And then 2 weeks later they had their combos changed. And it's just like, why am I even bothering with this?
Did you see the patch notes that they buffed LeBron because he got the gold at the Olympics?
That's amazing. And ridiculous.
What great developers.
Ridiculous.
Okay. Murph, you got a transition. I
can't. We need to move on from 2XK and we need to head in a direction, perhaps an easterly and eastward direction.
All right, well, let's head...
Brian, what is this?
Always to the east. So Eastward is a game that I had on my wish list for a while. Back when I believe it was when I got my seasonal full-time gig on the IGN Guides team that one of my buddies who worked on the IGN Videos team bought me one of the games off of my wish list as like a congratulations, which was very sweet. And it was Eastward, which is a very cute, very adorable real-time RPG. It's real cute.
I've seen this. This is from Chucklefish?
Yes, yeah, the people who do Wargroove.
Okay.
And it is. I believe it is just published by them. Yeah, but yeah, I basically if Chucklefish is on it, like I'm a fan. I don't think they've put out anything that I don't like, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I could probably put the number of publishers or developers that I can say that of on like one hand with fingers left over. But yeah, so it's really cute. You play this guy, John, who is a miner who lives in a town underground. And on one of his mining expeditions, he finds this little girl named Sam, and she's in this like tank that's filled with fluid, and she's hooked up to all these cables, and he finds her, he lets her out, and she lives with him and, you know, is growing up and is really, really cool. And she discovers that she's got some like weird abilities, and some stuff happens.
Go east.
And they're run out of their home, and they have been told horror stories of the surface, and that the surface of the planet is unlivable now. And due to a series of events, they find themselves actually fleeing to the surface, and they find that there's actually a bunch of people living up there. So then they kind of travel from place to place trying to figure out what's going on. Some things start appearing to Sam, and so she's trying to figure that out. John is taking care of her. He's like a really great cook. Cooking is part of the game. Yeah, it's really cool. So you control John and Sam, and you can switch which person you're controlling, and John fights people with his frying pan, and then he can find like guns and other things like flamethrowers and stuff as the game goes on.
Bit of an upgrade.
Yes. Yeah. And so you can play as him, you can switch to Sam, and then she's got the ability to like throw bubbles that you know, hold, that like paralyze enemies for a while, and then you can switch back to Sam and do stuff, or you can switch back to John and like smack them with his frying pan or shoot them with a shotgun or whatever. There's also puzzles that you solve by splitting them up and proceeding like on two different paths with them. Super cute, like adorable art, really great music, just a really fun, silly game that also, you know, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's also not completely lighthearted. Yeah, it's really, really good. I'm enjoying it. I think I'm about 15 hours in. I'm at like the third hub or something like that. But yeah,
15 hours. How long is this game meant to be? Because like I've been looking at it and I'm like, oh, this is probably like 10 to 12. But if 15 and you're only at like the third quote unquote area.
Yeah.
Do you have like any idea how much longer it's going to go on?
Yeah.
For?
So the game is like 20 hours to 30 hours.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's good.
Is that all just like main content? Are there like side quests?
No, there are like
too?
10 hours of side quests, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, it's cute. There, you know, there's a lot of like endearing characters in it. There's, you know, one time you'll this town, the person who's ruling it is not great, and they're trying to run out like this circus troupe, and so you're trying to help them kind of like, you know, punch up their you know, all their different circus routines so that they can get more people coming and earn more money so that they can, you know, afford to, you know, buy the place where they've set up shop so that they don't have to leave. It's just, you know, a lot of stuff like that. You know, you cook food to restore your health. You go around and you'll find ammo that you'll need to do. You'll place down bombs, and then you can use the frying pan to like smack those bombs into different parts of the level to blow stuff up to let yourself get through. Like it's really it's charming.
Yeah, I'm watching gameplay of this as you're talking, and I love this art style.
It's so good.
I love autumnal games.
Yeah. It looks like Mother 3, and I really like that. I played about an hour of this when it came out, like years ago. I didn't get to like fully play it. Sometimes you hop off something and you're like, oh, I need to actually play it. This is definitely one of them. It looks gorgeous. It is gorgeous, and it did have a good intro.
Yeah.
So I will probably pick this back up, man. You're selling me.
Yeah, I've been playing it on Steam Deck. It's a really great Steam Deck game. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I should get. Is this on Switch?
Ooh, I don't know. I'll check on that.
Because looks like it debuted on Switch.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I played this on PC whenever that was.
Yeah, it's on Switch.
I think Switch is the ticket, or something portable, because I think that's like how I do RPGs now. Is like pick up and go. Like that's the only way my brain can take it now. So
$25 on Switch. So
not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Hey yo.
For a 20 or 30 hour game, yeah. Get it.
Frog Monster. That was the segue.
That's a B-52 song, isn't it? Frog Monster.
Oh my god.
You didn't expect a Rock Lobster reference, did you?
No. We got Beverly Hillbillies. We've got Rock Lobster. We're hitting all the demographics. Frog Monster, this is an indie game that came out over the summer. It got a lot of traction on Twitter because people were putting... because it came out around the same time, I think it's like... or just before Shadow of the Erd Tree dropped. And people were like, oh, this game has like 20 plus bosses and they're all more unique and interesting than FromSoft bosses or something like that. So this is a voxel art style. It's a movement shooter where it's this world of bugs and amphibians and some small mammals. And the world has turned to darkness because God has left, and he has an angel and a devil, and the devil started making monsters, and then the angel made you, a frog with a gun, to go kill all the monsters.
We all know angels are big fans of weaponry.
And so I would say the opening hours of this game are great. It really captures this feeling of speed, and it's also just kind of like a goofy game. It really leans into the voxel art style with like these creature designs. And also all the Foley is done by like acapella is not the right word, but it's like just a guy making like gun sound effects and random little monster sounds like ah and things like that. And also the shooting is pretty top-notch and fun feeling. It's got a great sense of speed, all the enemies, it's like targeting weak points and such. And I will say the bosses are a standout. It's a lot of different cool ideas. Like there's a snake boss, and the snake's body forms the arena. And he'll spit rats out at you, and you can only hurt him when his mouth is open. And as you deal damage to him, he'll coil tighter, making the arena smaller, and thus making it harder to avoid the rats he's spitting out. Or there's a tree boss, where he does different attacks based on what fruit he plucks off himself. And then in his third phase, he lights on fire, and then all of his attacks are changed up to be fire-based. And like Cuphead, when you die to a boss, it will show you a little meter of how close you were to beating it. That's a great motivator. There are a lot of different weapons and weapon upgrade paths. You can get like a shotgun, and you can make that shotgun full auto, or you can make that shotgun single shot, but it deals a ton of damage with that single shot. I think the issue is, once I got to, like, I think it's maybe the halfway point or the 3/4 point. It's hard to say. I have 8 hours into it. I just kind of hit a boss that was wildly unfun. And I just haven't gone back to playing it. I think a core issue of it is your character model is very low to the ground. And also the FOV is kind of narrow. So it creates this claustrophobic feeling when enemies charge at you for an attack, and it can be hard to tell like how you're particularly supposed to jump and dash out of the way to avoid that. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do. Let me ask you. So this, when I look on the Steam page, it says Metroidvania. How does the levels work?
So I would say for the first, I think it's like the first 4 levels, it's pretty linear. And then you reach like a hub town, and it sort of opens up with some branching paths. And that's also when you start getting the upgrade stuff. Beating certain bosses will unlock sort of Metroidvania-esque like powers, like, oh, now you can double jump. And now you can reach this ledge that you couldn't before. Now you can wall climb. Now you have a grapple tongue. And things like that. I'm not really sure I would call it a Metroidvania, because a lot of those are just for moving around in the overworld. I can't think of any boss fights where, like, the grapple came into play at all. Or even, like, the wall climb, even though I think this dev could have thought of some. The other thing that will be probably divisive on this is the soundtrack. I kind of love the soundtrack in this. It's all little MIDI loops. Like, there's no epic sounding music in this. It's all just a lot of like a 5-year-old plinking on a xylophone. Like, doot, 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 doot.
Is that a problem during
the issue
the
is that's like a 5-second loop.
Oh, it's repetitive.
Yeah.
Is that a problem during the bosses when it's like, oh, this should be a fucking bum 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 bum, or you know what I mean?
You know, I could see the argument for that, but I think it commits so hard to the MIDI music angle that it just kind of loops back around to being funny and intentional. Yeah. I think like this dev is definitely just like having fun with it. As the other thing I like, this is small, is you get like equipment that change up your abilities slightly. Like, oh, this will make it so that when you reload, there's a chance that you won't spend any ammo.
Oh, that's good.
Or something like that. Those are quote unquote bugs that you eat, and the bugs range from houseflies to river toads and bats.
I don't know I don't know who made this game, but I hate to break it to them, a toad is not a bug.
If it's smaller than you, it's a bug. I think that's a line from the game, actually.
Oh, wow.
Oh, there you go.
Bold.
Yeah, so like I was
not
really
how taxonomy works, but I
game.
appreciate it.
I was riding high on this game, and then I just got really, I don't know, frustrated and tired of it. And I think it's like kind of those elements that I was praising, like the MIDI music and the voxel art style. I think like if you're locked into a boss fight for like 2 hours and you're just trying and trying over again, that can get grating, I think. And it sort of moves away from, oh, this is just a fun, silly time, to like, oh, you're actively mocking me with this, you know?
Speaking of actively mocking you, could you say that they are joking as if
there's a few Joker tricks.
Can't believe you've done this. I can't believe you've done this.
Brian, you are like the 5th time Balatro has appeared on the podcast. However, you might just be the fucking best at it. David played a lot of Balatro and is pretty good at it. But I have seen your live streams of you playing Balatro, and it's been pretty impressive.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, I have probably around 550 hours into Balatro.
Good lord.
And I have gotten every achievement in the game. It is not easy to do that. And full disclosure, and also minor spoilers for this upcoming January episode of the Platformers, Balatro is currently my game of the year.
That makes sense.
I can see that. I know people. David, last time he talked, said like this is now one of his favorite games of all time.
I think this is one of the best. I think this is probably my favorite roguelike ever. And it's my favorite deck building game ever. The only game that I would maybe put up there on the roguelike thing is Hades. But it is. Balatro is immaculate. So I've said this before, but my grandfather is the god of poker. So
okay.
What?
Yeah. I'm descendant from deity. I'm actually a demigod. But
well, if it's twice removed, you're like a semi-demigod.
I'm a semi-demigod. You know.
Yeah.
Does that mean you?
Okay. I'm a semi-god.
You fold on the river or what? What does that mean?
What does that mean? It means I know when to hold them and I know when to fold them, but I don't know when to walk away and when to run.
There you go.
He's still learning that. It's like learning your backhand and ping pong.
I'm learning that.
He's gotta.
So my grandfather has played poker my entire life and has been gambling in poker my entire life. One of the biggest things that we would do growing up was everyone at the house would put in some money. They would put in like $1 or $10 or whatever and buy some chips, and they would play. We would all play poker until like the wee hours of the morning. And this is something we did every time we went up there. Like poker has been in my life since I was so young. I literally don't remember a time when it wasn't part of my life.
Wow.
And so I am intimately familiar with all of the rules of poker and all of the cards and suits and hands and everything. Poker is just like second nature to me. And so when Local Funk came out with a roguelike deck building game based on poker, I was like, all right, like, let me check this out. And the greatest thing about this, I mean, if your listeners have already heard about this game, then I guess I won't like go too far.
We don't need like the full breakdown, but maybe give us the Masters breakdown.
Yeah,
what's high level Balatro?
Give us the semi-demi breakdown.
From a very, very high level, because I probably, and I don't know who you've had on the show, I'm probably the best Balatro player you've had on the show.
Probably, I would say. I
win like basically every run. And like I run up the numbers and go deep into the post game every time.
So you don't even need to learn to walk away.
No, I don't. I actually, that's a good point. That's a good point. But yeah, so I've gotten to the point several times where like I'm doing scientific notation scores, like I'm getting into the E areas. One of the interesting things is that there's a way that you can build your deck and you can pick up certain types of jokers that will help you to win more consistently, but they won't get you to like the super end game. That is like just a completely different thing. When I started getting into really high level Balatro was when I started being like, all right, jokers are cool, but tarot cards is where it's really at. Letting me just remake my deck as I please. One of my favorite ones to do, I just did one of these earlier today, was I played with the checkered deck, which is split cleanly between spades and hearts. And then I just did flushes. And I did re-triggers. So re-triggers is a huge thing. You'll get stuff like the Hanging Chad, and then you'll get like the, I forget what it is. I think it's called the Arrowhead, which every time you play a spade, it'll give you like 30 chips or 50 chips. And then because you have the Hanging Chad, which re-triggers the first card you played 2 additional times, if you play a flush of spades and you do that, and then you do the like the spade mult joker, which gives you 3 mult every time you trigger one of your spades, and you do that, and then you do like, oh, I'm gonna do the sock and buskin, which re-triggers every face card that I play twice, and then it's like, okay, so I'm gonna use tarot cards to change my entire deck into kings of spades, and then I'm gonna play flush houses or flush fives, which is literally all 5 of the same exact card, which is the highest value hand that you can possibly play. And I'm going to re-trigger it multiple times, which means I'm getting these Joker rewards multiple times for every card, and it just becomes insane. And then it's like, then you turn all your cards to steel cards, which means that every card you don't use multiplies your score by 1.5 times. And it just and then you get the mime, and it's like, oh, trigger every one of those again, and it just becomes insane. Like, it just becomes ridiculous. I have some Twitter clips up that I've shown. Bro, I don't know if you've seen any of those.
No.
Where it was just like little like 10 to 15 second clips of like, this is me doing one hand.
So let me ask you, the way you're saying it, it sounds like the appeal to you is breaking the game.
Yes.
It's like bending it as much as possible. So when you do the, like, let's say for the achievements, there's a lot of variants or things where it's like, you can't do this or you can't do that. I'm sure things like, playing without jokers was like, illuminating of like, oh, I don't fucking need jokers. I could just break my fucking deck and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you go back to those variants for the sake of flavor and fun, or to break those things, or do you just like, I just want to play the game?
To an extent, yes, but I will say so there are built-in challenges and stuff. Like, there are achievements where it's like, okay, beat the game without buying any jokers, or like one of the easier ones is like beat the game without ever having more than 4 jokers, which is actually one of the like easier ones, but you have to think to do it. And then there's other ones where it's like Big Hands is like have like over 80 cards in your deck or something like that. And then there's Small Hands, which is like have fewer than 20 cards in your deck. Which like those all, what I think that the best thing, I'm going to write a feature about this eventually. But one of the best things that achievements can do, I think, is to highlight different ways to play that you wouldn't have thought of previously. And I think Balatro does a really great job with that. There are also built-in challenge runs with this game that encourage you to play very specifically or playing in like very high stakes, really easy to fail ways. Like there's a challenge called the Golden Needle where you only have one hand per round to make your score goals. And that's way harder. Like that's the hardest challenge in the game I found, even harder than playing with no jokers. But it's interesting. Typically I will just play like the game. I'll just like play on white stake difficulty, which is the easiest difficulty, on my favorite deck, which is the Ghost deck, where you can get spectral cards that just appear in the shop and you can buy them. Normally, spectral packs have to show up, which are like the most rare pack that you'll get in the shop. But with the Ghost deck, they just kind of show up and you can buy them, and they're really powerful. So I like playing with that deck. But yeah, I typically will just play through and just see what do I find in the first shop? Like, can I build a run around this? And then I just go from there. And it's kind of like video game comfort food for me. Like I don't go to it for the challenge. I'm so familiar with it. It's not hard to me, anymore because I've done so much of it. Like I've beaten every deck on the hardest difficulty and then done all the challenges. So now it's just kind of like, I'm just going to take my victory lap and just do random stuff. And it's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. I highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Do you think, because to me, this is like one of the big breakout indie games of the year. You're not the only podcast or streamer that I've seen saying like, Shadow of the Erd Tree, boo. The new Zelda game, boo. The game of the year is going to be Balatro, and that hack Jeff Keighley won't recognize it. Do you see us getting do you see us getting more Balatro likes, and would you welcome Balatro likes, or do we not even need iterations on this formula?
So one, I will say, we don't need more because Balatro is so flawless. Like it's crazy. There are so few games where it's crazy because I've been a critic for a long time. I pretty much always have ways that games could be improved. Balatro had a big balance patch already, and it was so good. It's one of the best balance patches I've ever seen because it doubled down on the stuff that was interesting and made stuff that wasn't very good way better. So it made the balance way more interesting. It made interactions between different jokers better and more compelling without giving you just pick this to win. But without totally gutting it so that it's useless. Like Vampire Joker used to be really overpowered. Now it's not as powerful, but if you get it with the Midas Joker, then it's just as powerful as it ever was, or almost as powerful as it ever was. But talking about imitators, we already do have some, actually. There is a game that came out that is very much like a take on Balatro, and I welcome all of those because I feel like we've had so many roguelike games. We've got Monster Train, we've got Hades, and a lot of these, like Hades specifically, that will chase, or Downwell, where it's just this is a very specific type of thing. And I think what Balatro has shown is they don't need to be things that we already have. You've got, oh my God, what's it called? Hellskate, which is basically roguelike Tony Hawk. You've got Hades, which is roguelike Diablo or whatever. And now with Balatro, it's we can do roguelike poker. So now it's okay, can we do something? This is totally throwing stuff out of the, out of my, left pocket. But do we have something with checkers? Is there something, you can do way more. And I feel
Mancala roguelike.
Yeah. Could we do?
I would be down for the man called
Could we do
roguelike. Don't even make.
Could we
jokes.
do a backgammon roguelike? Could we do Parcheesi? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but think about it. And so, yeah, I definitely welcome them. I think it's great. I think Local Funk should be applauded for making something so crazy good. And then supporting it. Like, it's getting patches, it's getting new modes. You know, like
yeah, I think the last thing, and we can move on from here.
Yeah.
Is that it's interesting that when we talk about games of the year, a lot of times we will go to like experiences. We experienced such a great story or a singular moment, and a lot of times we ignore the comfort game or the game that we will keep going to day after day, month after month, year after year, 10, 20 years from now. People will remember Balatro because it's like, oh my god, that ruled my fucking life like Tetris did.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, I think in terms of design, that is so important. So it probably is if not the game of the year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely tend to gravitate, and this will not be any surprise to listeners of my podcast, The Platformers, but I am a huge advocate for indie games. I find that most of the most interesting stuff is happening in indie games and not in AAA games. And so most of my games of the year are indie games. So this isn't like some departure from that for me, but it is really nice to see it get widespread recognition, to see people doing music covers of it with their jazz bands and fusion bands on YouTube. You know, go look at, like, the music in this game is immaculate. Like, go look up the Balatro theme. It's so good. But yeah.
Okay, Murph, it's time. We are.
Hey, wait, hold on, bro.
An hour and 17 in, and it is time for the Yakuza minute.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, hold on, bro. I gotta segue of my own. So that was my judgment of Balatro, but you know,
he's catching on. I think he could be the third chair.
We out here, baby.
Gosh.
But
All right.
you know what I don't have a judgment about? Lost Judgment. Take it away, Murph.
All right. I guess that answers the question I was going to start with, which is, do you, Brian, have any experience with the Yakuza games?
No.
Because last time I did a Yakuza minute, Abram surprised me and said, actually, I have played this one.
So the only Yakuza game that I have ever played was I had an Atlas appointment for Persona 3 Reload, Persona 5 Tactica, and Yakuza, the man who changed his name.
Who erased his name, yeah.
So I have played a little bit of that from the PAX West demo. But other than that, I have no experience with Yakuza because, and this is probably heresy, because I know all the Yakuza lovers out there hate it when I say this, but I don't care anything about crime or like real life stuff. I like sci-fi and fantasy and that sort of stuff. I'm not a big fan of like, I'm not interested in mafia stuff. I'm not interested in Yakuza.
You're not down to earth. Your heads are in the clouds.
You got it.
Okay. So Lost Judgment, this is the sequel to the Yakuza spin-off Judgment, which follows our detective boy, Takuyuki Yagami. This is a difficult one for me to get a bead on, because it does, like, a lot of things really good, and then it does its main thing really bad. So, the plot of this one is the Yakuza franchise, RGG Studios, takes on high school bullying. And one thing I've never really commented on with the Yakuza franchise, mainly because I didn't really realize it till this one, is the Yakuza franchise is very PSA heavy. Like, there's a lot of, like even from the first entry on the PS2, there's a lot of, like, characters just stopping and explaining, like, no, here's the realities of being homeless in Tokyo, or here's how the 1980s bubble economy led to a swath of homelessness in 1988.
There's some edutainment.
Yeah. And this game kind of opens with that. You kind of do a cold open case where Yagami's already in something, and then friends of his call him down to Ijincho, which is the setting for Yakuza 7, Like a Dragon. So it reuses that map. And they're like, we've been contracted by this prestigious private school to look into cases of high school bullying. And it does this whole spiel of like, actually, high school bullying is a very serious problem. 5% of all teenage suicides can be traced back to high school bullying.
Dang, that's like
That's
brutal.
over like, yeah. And like, it really wants to break down like, yes, this is a serious problem. This is a serious problem. So the issue is they resolve the high school bullying at the end of like chapter 2, which is maybe, I'm going to say 5 hours into this 30-hour game. And then it becomes, there is a serial killer loose who is targeting high school bullies that led his son to suicide. And the issue is that he confessed to the murder, but around the same time he was supposedly committing the murder, he was also caught groping a woman on a train, and that's what he was busted for. And because the Japanese law system is bizarre and draconian, he cannot be charged for the murder because he is using the groping as an alibi. And so you have to prove that he didn't do the groping, but he did do the murder. And that's our detective case. How did he do it?
Is this you kind of lost me.
Yes. The game, and that's not even like the only like, oh, now the plot is this. Because after you catch up with the serial killer, you then have to team up with the serial killer because there's another serial killer.
Oh, they're dextering it.
Who wants to implicate the Japanese Prime Minister of Health in the first serial killer's machinations for a scheme that will profit them 100 trillion yen. Now, in USD, that's about $830 billion.
That's a lot of money.
And we get so far removed from let's talk about high school bullying, y'all, right? Like, it's just a weird plot, and there's a lot of wheel spinning. I think the Yakuza franchise, especially in this modern era, the PS2, PS3 era didn't quite have this, but once they shifted into the RGG engine, it kind of has this issue that modern prestige television does, where it's like, prestige television's like, we have 8 episodes, and each episode needs to end on some sort of reveal or twist. So we have to come up with 8 twists in our story to keep the viewer interested, right? So Yakuza games tend to have 13 chapters, and each chapter has to end on a twist or reveal. So it's like each chapter is like, no, you thought it was blank, it's actually blank, y'all. Right? It's just, and this is like one of the worst proponents of it. I think if it wasn't for some other elements that I'm going to praise in this game, this would be like down with Yakuza 3 and like the D tier worst of the franchise. The good things is that this has what I think is the best combat in any Yakuza game. In that it goes back to like what Yakuza 0 did, where you have 4 different styles to switch between. You have a crane style, which is crowd control, tiger style, which is for one-on-one, snake style, which is a lot of fun. It's about like counters and grappling. And then you have a boxing style, which was DLC, so it's not really that well integrated. But the combat encounters actually feel like they're crafted for you to switch between these styles, where snake style is about disarming opponents and countering big heavies, so they'll pepper in some opponents with weapons or some big heavies that you need to switch it up for. You can actually evolve these styles quite a bit with all these different moves you can unlock that are like previous Yakuza games would hide those unlocking of moves behind like side content or hidden masters that you'd have to actively like go out and seek. Here they're just part of the skill tree, and that's cool. So by the end, like the actual final boss fight, because it has all these refinements to the combat, is like one of the best in the series, even though I did not give a shit about who I was fighting for the final boss. The issue becomes the combat's really de-emphasized in this one. And really easy. I was playing on normal difficulty. You don't even really need to switch styles. You can stay in the base style and actually get through a lot of combat encounters up to, like, a point in the final chapter. And even the random street brawls you get involved with are going to be, like, 2 to 3 guys max with, like, piddly tic-tac-sized health bars that you can just clean up. It really feels like they wanted combat to just be, like, one part of this detective sim experience they've built. The other part is they kind of refined a bit of the detective elements from the first Judgment, which I, at the time, had said, like, were nifty, but they were pretty half-baked. The same is kind of true here, where they have a lot of ideas, but none are really followed through on. They give you a lot of gadgets. You have, like, a long-distance microphone. You have a dog to trail, like, scents.
You're selling me on the dog.
Drones.
I want the dog. That sounds great.
You can dress up the dog, if that helps.
I mean, it doesn't hurt.
So what would you rate this?
I think this is B tier for me. Kind of alongside the first Judgment. It would have stayed in, like, C tier had it not been for the other thing I'm going to praise, which is the actual, they call it the high school stories. Because you don't just have Kamurocho and Jinsho to explore. You have the entire, like, 3-story high school that part of the story is set in until it becomes Chase the Duo serial killers. And that whole high school has a secondary plot you can engage in, where Yagami becomes a mentor to various high school clubs. And those clubs are all, like, very fully fleshed out minigames. There's a skateboarding club, which is basically Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. There's the dance club, which is a rhythm game. There's the motorcycle club, which is Road Rash. There is an esports club where you just play Virtua Fighter 5.
So this seems like the first time you're engaging in the side activities.
Yeah, and that was because I got to the end of the story and I felt pretty sour on it, and I was like, is there, like, anything I can find redeeming about this? And I was like, oh, I haven't done any of these high school things, let me go check that out. And, like, I was far more engaged in all those minigames than I was in the main plot. It's kind of like Yakuza 5 in that way, where Yakuza 5 was, like, had so much content, so many different minigames you could engage in, a hunting minigame, there was taxi missions, there was racing, and I just didn't really, like, it's the issue with this format I do these retrospectives in, where I'm kind of just focusing, I'm shotgunning the main story. And if each main story is like 30 to 40 hours long, I'm not going to really feel inclined to explore that side content. I kind of just want to get to the next game, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But for this one, I did do that side content, and you know what? It really does bring the experience up. I kind of wish the main game ditched, like, I'm going to say 3/4 of its plot twists, and was just like, there's a serial killer targeting high schoolers. Ingratiate yourself into the high school and see what the students know, and they'll give you information, right?
Yeah.
And I think if they had kept a smaller scope, this would be a stronger experience for me.
There you go. What's next on the Yakuza list?
3 games remain in the franchise. Next up is going to be Yakuza Ishin, which is the Edo period piece, which is basically Yakuza characters as samurai.
That sounds fun.
It's currently the lowest rated on Backlogged.
That is because I have only played the fucking Yakuza Fist of the North Star game. That is the second game I am most interested in. So maybe I just like the bad ones. Who knows? Maybe.
Maybe.
Guys, I think it's time for the variety minute. We gotta get a show on the road. is the Metroid franchise. This is the fucking big episode. We haven't talked about it at all, but we're fucking covering Super Metroid, which is kind of a big deal. And we brought on Brian, who is a mega Super Metroid fan. And we're going to talk about the Metroid franchise. Brian, what is your experience with the Metroid franchise?
Well, let me just start by holding these beautiful babies up.
Oh my god!
Right. Oh, he's got amiibo.
He's got amiibo. That's how you know.
I've got the limited amiibo, the joint pack of
shit.
the.
Oh man, Samus Blazes.
Yeah, Samus and the little baby Metroid.
Equipable joint.
Wow.
And the little baby Metroid. So you gotta know. And if you look back there, you might be able to see it. People who are listening to the show won't be able to see it, but if you look right up there, I've got a Metroid poster on the wall.
Dread.
I've got a Dread poster on the wall. Dread, fun fact about Dread, it's the third best Metroid game ever made.
That is a fun fact. How fun is it? What are the other two?
Well, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
So, my experience with Metroid is I started with the original Metroid when I was over at a friend's house playing that. That game is inscrutable. I don't really recommend people play Metroid 1 unless you really just want like a classic old school, like a capital O, capital S, old school retro game experience. I highly recommend that instead of doing that, you play the Game Boy Advance remake of Metroid 1, Metroid Zero Mission, which is the second best Metroid game ever made.
Okay.
But, yeah, Super Metroid is number one. It's the best Metroid game ever made, and it's my favorite video game of all time. So...
Okay, glad we got you on for this podcast.
Yeah. So my favorite games of all time, number one is it's a tie. Super Metroid is one of them, and the other one is Baldur's Gate 2. Both perfect games for totally different reasons.
It would have been funny if you said the second one was Hatsune Miku Logic Paint ass.
It would have been funny if I had said that, considering I was just like, yeah, it's just like a fun Picross game earlier in the show. Yeah, but yeah, my experience, I've played Super Metroid so many times. There's a lot of great stuff in this game. I know we're going to get into this later, but yeah, my favorite entries are definitely Super Metroid is one with a bullet. Zero Mission is number 2. After that, it is Dread probably edges out Fusion just for the gameplay, because the gameplay and the gunplay is really, really good.
So you definitely skew more the 2D Metroid.
Yes.
Like, how do you feel about the Prime trilogy or even Other M?
I'm gonna spew some hot ass takes right now. Prime is okay.
Oh no! Oh no!
Prime is okay. It is one of the most overrated games of all time. People who talk about Prime being better than Super are smoking some crack. I'm just going to put it that way.
Woo.
That might be a hot take.
Oh, Lord, he said it.
I have...
But Prime 2 Echoes.
I have played Prime. I have played Prime 2 Echoes. I've played a little bit of Prime 3 Corruption, but not all of it. Prime 2 is better than Prime, but...
I can respect that. You're a Prime 2 sicko. I respect given.
It's better, but here's the thing. It's not Metroid. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can do it. It's like a lesser version. We're gonna get into this, I'm sure, but I'm a huge Souls fan. I've platinumed every FromSoft Souls game from the original Demon Souls on PS3 to Elden Ring. Like, this is like my wheelhouse. One of my other wheelhouses.
Okay.
I'm also a huge Castlevania fan. Metroidvania, like the genre, it's called that, which really pisses me off because Castlevania deserves almost no credit for it. Because Metroid started it. And so it should just be Metroid style games. But people, now Metroid, the franchise, kind of left that 2D stuff behind to do 3D stuff. And then during the, Advance and DS era, Castlevania was carrying the torch. And I respect them for that. I respect Konami for that. They were putting out these type of action platforming exploration games at a pretty rapid clip. There are more of those games than there are of like the 2D Metroid games that I love. And there are more good ones than there are of this. But no Castlevania game is as good as Super Metroid. That's just a fact. Anyways. But we'll get into you'll have me on to talk about Castlevania.
I'm stroking my beard. It was your secret plan to fire 50 hot takes so I could only catch 2 of them?
Yes.
Was that the plan?
Bro's eyes were really shifty there, dear listener. He was looking back and forth. He didn't know what to say.
I just kept about, hey, I'm a good host no matter what.
Yeah.
So the guest, whatever the guest says is true. Okay.
So
you want wait. You want some more hot takes, or do you want to have a chance? Because I'll say this right now. The best 4 Castlevania games are.
Oh no! Don't do that.
No.
We're not ready for that right now. We're not. Go ahead.
Kid Dracula, the Netflix series.
I mean that is really good.
Okay, go ahead. Give the Castlevania hot takes.
All right.
It's the Metroid Minute, but go ahead.
Order of Ecclesia is number 1, then the 2 Soma
Okay.
Cruise games, then Symphony of the Night.
I'm not mad at that because honestly, I respect weird hot takes regarding the Igavanias. In Order of Ecclesia is its own thing unto itself.
Yeah.
That being said, I respect that. That's not that hot of a take.
Okay.
All right.
People will say, like, the reason why I feel like that's a hot take is because people will say Symphony of the Night is better than Super Metroid, and that it's the best.
People love Symphony of the Night. It's huge. I get it.
It's
one
good.
day it will be covered.
Yeah.
It is really good. Okay. Metroid. Let's say the typical Daydreamcast takes. I don't know if you. I was feeding my dogs the moment, so I'm unsure if you talked at all about Metroid 2. This podcast is infamous for praising Metroid 2.
I did not get to it. I gave my top 4, but the Mercury Steam remake of Metroid 2 is my number 5. So
really?
Yeah, my top 5 Metroid games are in order: Super Metroid, Metroid Zero Mission, Dread, Fusion, Metroid Samus Returns.
See, I completely agree that personally, I really like Samus Returns a lot. And you can see, going back to the sequel thing where you look at developers and their growth and evolution, you can see a lot of Mercury Steam learning very fast after the fucking Castlevania games, which are mid to okay to, you know what I'm saying? To like, oh my god, you get it.
Yeah, and
once they hit Samus Returns.
Samus Returns is okay to good, and Dread is good to great. Because they the problem with Samus Returns, in my opinion, is that they shoehorn the parry mechanic into everything. Like, you can't do anything in that game without parrying. In Dread, it's less required. It's still required. You have to do it for the Emmy sections, which are my big beef with that game. Are the Emmy sections. Apart from that and we're going to pretend like this game is non-linear, but it's actually incredibly linear. That I also have a big problem with because I feel like that runs against the spirit of Metroid. But Mercury Steam did way better with Dread than they did with Samus Returns. Like, they made it an optional mechanic. They made it a mechanic that makes encounters way easier, and it's only really required in Emmy sections if you get caught and in boss fights. But apart from that, like, you don't really have to do it. And the combat is way better. Like, the combat in Dread is like the best in the series.
I would get slaughtered by Pavlos if I didn't say that the Metroid 2 that Pavlos used to praise, the old co-host, was the original Game Boy one.
Yeah.
David also really likes it because it's like very like, it's the black and white art style. It works really well for the Game Boy and is a really solid game on its own. personally, I love Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime might be my favorite Metroid. So I was real quiet on that part, Brian.
Sure.
That being said, we also here really like Metroid Fusion. I think the one difference here, and I think it's going to be interesting once we get into the Super Metroid talk, is I think exploration is the spirit of Metroid, but I don't necessarily think the freeform design is necessary. I really think when I played Fusion the one time way back when Pavlos was still hosting, I was like, oh, I think Fusion clicked for me in a way where I was like, I think the developers of Metroid were so good at the genre that they saw that as no longer a priority, and then they were concentrating on other things. Like mood, atmosphere, scripting, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And you could complain about that to a certain extent with Fusion. And I think when Mercury Steam went in, they were like, what if we elaborated on combat? Because I think when Mercury Steam, like Dread, in my opinion, I think what's really special about it is its combat, and then everything else is good to great.
Yeah.
And then the combat is stellar. You know what I'm saying?
The boss fights are also
like,
very good. Yeah.
Yes.
So I would agree. And I understand why they did that with Fusion. My problem is it's not necessarily like it's not like Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, where it's like you can literally go anywhere first, because you can't necessarily. I mean, you can't go anywhere first, because obviously
there's still structure.
You have to have the various suit before you can go to Norfair. You have to have the gravity suit. I guess technically you don't have to have the gravity suit before you go to Meridia, but you have to have it before you can finish it. Or maybe you might actually not. But if you get the grapple beam, you might. You might have to. Anyways, that's for later. But the problem with Fusion is that it interrupts the flow too much. But I will give it credit, because atmosphere is something that I go to these games for, and Fusion has some of the best moments in any Metroid game. The SAX is the moments with the SAX are crazy tense and really good.
I am now of the opinion, like, still looking at it, like, I think the Emmys are a good way or a good evolution of it. I still think the SAX is better because it's a singular entity and it's a hunter. Even if most of the stuff is scripted, it works. It works so well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's way better, I think.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't think either of us care about, like, Metroid Pinball or the Hunters.
What? You don't?
Hold on,
I'm hanging up.
Oh, I'm
Hunters.
Spicy
Hunters
takes.
is the only other Metroid game I finished.
Oh my god.
Shameful.
Never.
I've been sitting here quiet, biding my time to drop the bombshell that Super Metroid is the only other Metroid game I finished. I started Metroid for NES because I was a 3DS ambassador, so I got that for free when they dropped the price $100.
So did I.
And I also got Fusion.
Yeah.
Because they also gave you GBA games, and I started both, and I just never finished it. I think Fusion kind of annoyed me with its stop and go like intro, where how it's like constantly like pausing to like do a cutscene where the Adam tells you go here, you know. Prime, I got real close to finishing, but the moment it was like go back through prior levels and look for the 13 artifacts, and then bring them to Tingle and pay him 500 rupees to translate the maps and whatever, I was like, I've clocked out. I've played all I need to play. So in a lot of ways, I'm kind of unfamiliar with Metroid outside of the fact that it's like one of the Nintendo franchises.
Yeah.
Or is it? Because it doesn't really get the shine on it compared to, like, you know, Pokemon, Mario, Zelda, but the fan base is just loyal and ravenous. And what do you think is the factor of that?
Personally, in my opinion, and Brian can spiel on this, I think Metroid and Zelda are in a different category in terms of franchises, where they are not meant for sales, although Zelda sells well. Metroid doesn't sell well. They're prestige. They are flexes of like, yeah, we are Nintendo fucking R&D one, whoever the fuck's making these. We're fucking good at what we fucking do. These are trendsetters in the genre. These are statements. They are big deals. At least back in the Disney. And I think, obviously, for Metroid, that changed. I think Zelda still has that. But I think, like, no matter what, the pull Metroid has is the prestige of design.
I would largely agree. I think that was true of Zelda and Metroid until Breath of the Wild. And now Zelda is, like, a massive deal. The discrepancy for Metroid is the same as like a lot of other stuff that I really love, like tactics games. Like Final Fantasy Tactics is another one of my top 5 games of all time. And that game is incredible, and I would take one of those every year for the rest of my life. But even though those are critically well received, they don't push numbers, and so people don't really focus on them. The same is true for 2D Metroid games. And I mean, it's true of other games as well. You know, look at Dishonored. Like Dishonored got like 10s. Dishonored 2 got 10. Dishonored 2 is like a almost perfect game, but it didn't sell that well. And then Arcane got pushed into making live service stuff, and now we're probably not going to get a Dishonored game for a while, if ever. You know, but yeah, I feel like that is the big thing. And, you know, going back to something that I meant to say earlier, you know, we were talking about 2D Metroid versus Prime. This is probably another hot take. I'm full of them.
Oh, no, I'm not ready. My heart can't take it, Brian.
I'm full of them, you guys. But my problem with Metroid Prime is the same problem I have with, like, 3D Mario games, which is... You can like, I am totally fine with people saying like, I like this more, or this is good, or whatever. But it's not, with one exception or two exceptions in the Mario space, which are Super Mario 3D Land and Super Mario 3D World. Apart from those, they don't give me what I come to Mario for. Which is that is what it is. So like 2D Mario games are about platforming precision and about getting to the end of the level. Whereas like a lot of games like Mario 64 or Mario Galaxy or less Mario Galaxy, Mario Odyssey is about, just explore in this level and do a bunch of random stuff to finish and get like little rewards. And it's like, well, that's not what I play Mario for. Like, that's fine, but like it would be just as good if you called it like, I don't know, Trogdor 3 or something. Like, it doesn't have to be Mario.
I don't think Trogdor's getting into Smash.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, he's got to be burninating the people and burninating the countryside and all that sort of stuff. And that's the same.
These are some deep cut references, everyone.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about every franchise but Metroid as well.
Yes.
I think expectation is something that I adjust per game. And when you say like what you get out of it, I think that is so important for every player, because when you say that, I agree. Like, if you play Super Mario Bros. 3, that's precision platforming, getting to the end of the level as well as you can. But I also think that there's other elements to other aspects of the franchise. Like, for instance, Super Mario World, I would say Super Mario World has quite a bit of exploration.
Sure, yeah.
Or like puzzle solving, and like one of my favorite Mario games is Donkey Kong 94, which is like not precision platforming necessarily. It can have that, but it's mainly puzzle solving. So like I think there's a lot of elements for different people in different ways. I think when it comes to subjectively, I get it. And especially when you talk about Metroid Prime, to go back to it, I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because it kind of feels like we're in a Metroid renaissance in a few ways in the Switch era, because we got Metroid 5 Dread.
We did.
Right?
I was asking for this for so many years. On the Platformers podcast, I was always talking about make a sequel to Super Metroid, you cowards at Nintendo. And then they actually did. When they announced it,
technically it's a sequel to Fusion.
They announced it as, I think it was Metroid 5, because Fusion is actually the sequel to Super Metroid. And then Dread is the sequel to Fusion. So I was like, wow, they actually did it. So now I can't complain about that. Now I have to ask for a sequel to Final Fantasy Tactics.
And we're also getting Metroid Prime 4.
Yes, which I don't care about.
After what, for like 15 years they originally teased that or something?
Yeah, that's for the perverts. That's not for me.
So does it feel like, I guess my question I'm leading into, did Other M kill the franchise for a bit? Or was the gap between Metroid games on the Wii and where we're getting Metroid games now just always inevitable? Because the gap between Super Metroid and Fusion and Prime is 8 years, which is almost the same gap as between Other M and Samus Returns.
Yeah. The short answer is yes. Other M did kill Metroid.
The short answer is yes.
The long answer is it wasn't actually Other M's fault directly. It's the Wii's fault, and it's Nintendo embracing gimmicks instead of sticking with what made their games good previously. And because they were chasing the motion controls, and that's what they leaned into with Other M, it didn't, like, the Wii, like, I bought a Wii and then I sold it because everything I played on it, I was like, this sucks, man. This is not what I want. And so, certainly there's some Other M stands out there somewhere just living their terrible lives and representing the worst parts of humanity. But to me, it is this is the period when Nintendo went to sleep on Metroid. That's when the indie scene started to step up, and we started to get, things like Shovel Knight. We started to get things like fan games like AM2R. We started to get, things like this. We started to get
Axiom Verge.
We started to get Axiom Verge. We started to get what I will say is the only other game that I will allow to be brought up in a discussion for the best Metroid style game of all time, which is Team Cherry's Hollow Knight, which is another 10 out of 10.
I think Hollow Knight's an 8 out of 10. That's my hot take for the episode.
Fun fact, hey, if you want to play Hollow Knight and you want a full 100% guide, I wrote the IGN guide for that game.
Oh, dang. Good plug.
So, yeah.
We're dealing with a master.
You are.
Yeah, dealing with the demi-semi-god.
I beat Radiance in that game. That is bragworthy.
That's good. Yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so...
do you... Now that... so, the looking forward, the part 2 of my question about, like, the Metroid Renaissance, do you want them to go back to sort of more a drip feed of let's only put out a Metroid game when we feel it's, like, quote-unquote perfect, or we really have an idea, or should they be more gung-ho about, like, let's just experiment with Metroid for a bit. Let's try and do our Breath of the Wild, but Metroid. Not necessarily saying a Breath of the Wild game, but Metroid flavored, but, like, how Breath of the Wild reinvented and reintegrated Zelda's imagery into the gamer space.
I don't have a lot of faith in Metroid spin-offs, and I think there was a period of time where Nintendo thought, oh, a Metroid spin-off is just as good as a Metroid, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, no.
Honestly, I have felt that way since maybe even before Prime, because we didn't know that Prime was going to be this big thing that people were going to grab onto, and like maybe even better than the 2D games. But I mean, that Prime 1 was kind of spin-off, like a high quality, high production value, another spin-off.
Well, it was moved off to an American studio because quite literally, like, Miyamoto said he didn't know what to do with Metroid. It wasn't really one of the franchises he was like interested or attached.
Yeah,
to.
he is much more interested in, he and Anuma are more interested in Zelda, and he's more interested in Mario, which is, it's a shame because, you know, like I talked about earlier with Castlevania, like for a period of time, Konami was putting these out all the time, and they were all really good. The problem, like, so you asked, should they wait until they have something that's perfect? The problem with that is they haven't released a perfect Metroid game since the Super Nintendo, I don't think. And so I don't trust them to know what's perfect. And if you look at the spin-offs, most of them are not good. Some of them are fun. Like, I actually think that Metroid Pinball is fun.
Sure.
I don't.
But it's not.
I don't care for Hunters, and it's not a Metroid game. It's a skinned pinball game. But I just happen to like pinball. I would much rather them iterate and do stuff more often, particularly if they're going to have, if they're going to contract out to people like Mercury Steam. Because like we were talking about earlier, they learned a lot from Samus Returns to Dread. And I am interested in seeing if they can evolve beyond that. What I have heard from my talks with indie developers who do these types of games is that it's really, really, really difficult to make interconnected worlds like this that have good feeling platforming, interesting enemies that don't feel stale or empty or too hard. Like, striking the balance and making these sort of grid-based 2D games is harder than it seems. So on that front, I do want to give Konami credit for actually doing it with Castlevania, although those are not exactly one-to-one the same as, Metroid games. But I would love to see them come out with one every 2 to 3 years and not wait another 8 to 10 before I get, something else. Or, even, I mean, this is a big thing that I say about games in general. Like, games take so long to make. I would much rather games be half as long and come out twice as often. Like, I would rather have, like...
You want shorter games with worse graphics made by people paid more, and you're not kidding?
To work less, and I'm not kidding. Yes.
Talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, I would rather have, like, a 2 to 5 hour Metroid game come out every 2 years or something. Like, it doesn't need to be this big. Like, I'm fine with it.
It doesn't need to be a blockbuster game.
I think that gunning for that is a mistake.
I agree. 100%. I think that's where Nintendo tries to push it, and that's where it needs to know where the niche is for it.
Yeah. So I would much rather them do it more often, because I feel like with that they're more likely to hit more often. When you only put out a game once every 8 to 10 years, if it is not good, then now I have to wait 20 years to have a shot at another good one. Like, that's just, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
I can get that. We've been talking a lot about gameplay. The last thing I think we should talk about before moving on to the main topic is, how do you both feel about the actual story of Metroid? Does that factor in for you? Did you fill your pants with hot cream when you saw Sylix was in the Prime 4 trailer?
I do not. I could give two shits less about Sylix. I do not care. However, I will say
the fact they called it Dread.
I did like Dread. I thought that was a nice touch. I did like that. I do like. I feel like the series has a lot of the same problems that many other series have that get a little. I don't want to say it's long in the tooth, because I don't think that's fair. But a lot of people who like delve too deep, I think it's the key is understanding the assignment. And to that end, I really don't think that the story matters that much. And we will get into that with Super Metroid, because the story of Super Metroid is incredibly simple and straightforward. There is not a lot there, but what is there is good, and it serves the purpose of the game, and the Ludo narrative is consonant with the game's plot. And I feel like that's really all you need. Like, you don't really, it's like with Castlevania. It's like, go kill Dracula. That's all you need. That's all we want. Like I don't need some big epic that's talking about.
You don't need the interconnectedness.
I don't need it to be a profound message on motherhood.
Yeah. You don't need to know that the Prime trilogy somehow takes place between Metroid and Metroid 2.
Which makes no sense. Like, yeah, it's just nonsense. Yeah.
I will say, okay, so my take on the story, and then we can move on. Well, we will get to the game of the week, dear listener. We promise. It will happen. It's just a big build-up. You know, it's the drum roll. I like the story. I think Bri is right in that knowing the assignment is important, and there have been times where doubling too much down on the story was a problem. He just joked about it, but Other M cared way too much about the story in a harmful way. And I would even say in Fusion, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Adam sucks. I think Adam's bad. Adam works once Dread happened. But otherwise, I think Adam sucks. And in Fusion, it was kind of bad. And in Other M, it was really bad.
Maybe another hot take. I think Adam only kind of works in Dread.
I agree. That's not a huge defense of Adam. I'm just
He's
saying,
better than in Fusion, but that is a low bar.
Low bars, yes. I think it's stuff like that. The only thing I really like about Other M, and this isn't even the giant cutscenes or the drama or the voice acting or whatever, it's that I liked Ridley's alternate forms. Because like Ridley was growing into different larval forms, much like Alien and Aliens. You know what I'm saying? Like that is what I enjoyed about it. I like world elements. So I think Prime does a really good job with this. It's all external stuff, and there is depth to it, and with the reading of the different things. You know me, I'm a fucking lore guy. I'll read a paragraph and be like, yes, this is good. Prime does that in spades. I really like that. I think the 2D games are really tasteful about it. It's all environmental. It's all well done. I think Fusion has really great storytelling when it's not being shoved in your face. Particularly like the ship rooms and what they're experimenting on, shit like that. The frozen Ridley, I love all that. That's all fucking great.
Yeah.
So it's all subtlety that really works for Metroid. Less is more, but it's got to be in the right moments, you know.
Yeah. So part of that is going to feed into one of the things that I'm going to talk about when we get to Super Metroid, which is environmental storytelling. Like the frozen Ridley is awesome because of that. Because if you know what happened before, the great thing, and this is something that's great about Souls games and Metroid games, and in particular Super Metroid and Fusion. If you don't know the history, it's just a cool set piece. It's just a frozen dragon in the background, which is like, whoa, what the heck is that? It's just cool. And so you get the rule of cool stuff going on. But if you do know the history, then it's like, crap, they got Ridley too? That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a bad sign. And like the other thing, I kind of wanted to say this. I've talked about this with Brendan. I will say this is the time to name drop Brendan Hesse. He did a Metroid documentary. He's a huge Metroid guy as well. Love him. He's a huge friend and family of the podcast. He and I've talked about how they backflip a lot on whether or not the Federation is a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like they seem to like dip their toes in and like, oh yeah, the Federation and the Federation scientists, they're bad. But then they'll back out like real quick, like, oh, it's like a rogue team, or oh, this one person's bad. They'll do a lot of that stuff. I think doubling down on the Federation being bad is the ultimate move. They need to commit to it.
Really?
Otherwise, I think I'm done.
Oh, okay. I totally disagree. Wow.
Okay. Well, we don't have to get into it now. We can go into Super Metroid.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, that is my take.
Because they're the good guys in Super.
I agree, but like, again, like when you, I don't know. I think as they go on with the tiptoeing and stuff, I think they need to commit. That's my thing. Does that make sense?
The only thing I want out of a Metroid game, and I got into a fight with a high school friend.
Oh my god,
it was one of our dumbest.
I almost thought you were gonna say I got into a fight with a high schooler.
No. I'm not investigating a serial killer. that was the other thing I didn't mention about Lost Judgment, is a lot of your fights are with children, with high schoolers. Amazing. As a grown-ass man.
It's the Always Sunny scene with Charlie and Mac just beating up those kids.
No, literally, because Yagami knows Kung Fu, so he's just beating the fuck out of, like, 16-year-olds. Anyway, like, would you ever want to see... Like, it doesn't even have to be a gameplay sequence. And I know Other M kind of did this, but honestly, I don't actually know what happens in Other M.
You're not missing anything.
Would you ever want to see Samus, like, on a populated, not derelict planet? Like, what, does Samus have an apartment?
Do you want Ellen Ripley to do that?
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of like Aliens,
exactly.
Right? Like the opening of Aliens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but
I don't like Aliens, so the answer is actually no.
Yeah, I was gonna say, which movie is better,
either.
Alien or Aliens? I think the first movie's better.
Yeah.
So,
I think Alien is the only good Alien movie. Everything else is like okay. So.
No, I think I agree with that. Like,
I feel like
a million hot takes in the span of 30 minutes.
I feel like the more Samus has the same rules that need to apply to her as do Boba Fett in Star Wars. The more she talks, the less cool it is. She needs to be a quiet badass who just comes in, takes names, kicks ass, and leaves. Like, that's what she needs to be.
Here's a good example, Murph. The main primary, like, personal thing, and this is what we said about Adam. I'm gonna go ahead and, like, say the Adam thing now. Adam was a commanding officer to Samus, and he was, like, mean to her, but she kind of liked it. And then he died and then became, like, his personality became the AI she uses.
Which I think is fucking stupid.
I do remember that element from Fusion.
It's so dumb.
It's very dumb. And in Other M, like, I think, I guess the way to say it is like, the strength of Samus is in her confidence as a woman, and stuff like the Adam thing undermines it.
Yeah.
And Brian is right in the sense of, like, don't make her dependent on someone like that. You know what I mean? Like, just have her be her. You know what I mean? Have her be strong on her own, and then you're good.
Hey, here's the thing about Fusion and about getting instructions from an AI that's based on your former CO. First of all, she's a bounty hunter. She doesn't need a CO. Second of all, the first 3 games are her walking onto planets filled with hostile aliens alone, beating the shit out of all of them and leaving. Like, she doesn't need anyone. She's the ultimate badass.
One game is literally her committing a genocide against the most evil,
the most dangerous thing that exists.
Yeah.
Metroid 2 is literally her taking on the most dangerous being that exists and just
killing all of
murdering all of them except one, which we'll get into, and then just piecing the fuck out alone.
I think that.
And when she got to the planet, she had nothing but her pea shooter. Like, she is like people talk about Master Chief being like a badass of walking in and just being a one-man army. Samus is way stronger than that.
Samus didn't need a scorpion. She didn't need a warthog.
She doesn't need a sergeant to back her up. She doesn't need Marines. She doesn't need anything. She just walks in and packs them up and leaves. Like, she is one of the most badass sci-fi characters ever created. You know? Like, I don't know. And I think that everything they do to detract from that is just an absolute... They're stepping on rakes all the way out of the yard. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And that's why that is the reason why I think that Super Metroid and Zero Mission are the best Metroid games, is because
I can see that.
They get out of their way and just let her be a badass.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
All right. Is it time? Are we ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
Okay. Fucking, how long is this? 2 hours in.
2 hours and 10 minutes in.
I'm fucking dying.
Remember when I said, like, we try to get, like, variety minutes, 20 minutes, what you playing's gonna be 30?
I'm dying.
I think we flew too close to the sun.
I'm dying.
See,
I should have realized Brian likes to talk. I should have fucking...
Your first mistake was you invited me on this podcast.
And then he told us about his 3-hour podcast he used to do.
Hey, I warned you guys. I warned you.
Well, we're bringing
It's good content.
Blast from the past, 3-hour podcast time. This week's game of the week is Super Metroid. Released in North America on the Super Nintendo in 1994, it was developed by Nintendo R&D 1. Written and developed by Yoshio Sakamoto. Developed 10 years after Metroid 1, it is the third Metroid title. After Metroid 2, Samus has literally killed all the Metroids except a single child Metroid. She brings that to Ceres' space colony so scientists can study it, but as she leaves, it is immediately attacked by space pirates and their leader, Ridley. So Samus must return to planet Zebes, Zebes or Zebes, whatever, home of the space pirates.
Believe in yourself.
And search for the infant Metroid. She's held captive by familiar foes and some new ones too. It allows multi-direction firing and some cool abilities enabled by the Super Nintendo hardware. It is regarded as a classic and is one of the most important games within the franchise and within an entire genre. Boys, what do we think of Super Metroid? I think Brian has already made a point clear.
It is a 10 out of 10. It is the best game ever made. But I will say, I'm really fascinated to hear what Murph has to say about this game. Because have you told people your history with this game?
I mentioned this is my first time playing it. And it's the second Metroid I've finished outside of Hunters.
Man.
So this is the first real.
This is the first actual Metroid game that you've played.
So yeah, let's hear it, Murph. Is this a 10 out of 10?
I mean, for once, one of these greatest of all time games actually lives up to the hype.
Let's fucking
go, baby. We got another one.
There we go.
I think this is almost perfect. I have a few bugbears that I'm sure are known issues with the game, but otherwise I think this game is pretty close to perfect. I'd have to assess what SNES games I've actually played, but this might be the best SNES game I've played.
I think it may be safe that it is the best SNES game.
I think the real appeal to me is, we mentioned in the Variety Minute, is the
Chrono
environmental
Trigger would probably
storytelling.
be the only close one, or Final Fantasy VI. Continue, sorry.
It would be the environmental storytelling, the little, like, not even cutscenes, just like it's almost like Half-Life or Half-Life 2, right? Where you're still controlling everything that's going on, but just like something's happening, like that initial moment where Ridley is revealed with the baby Metroid. That is such a cool moment.
Jump scare, baby.
How you're introduced to bosses like Fontoon or Kraid. I love the fake mini Kraid. That's hilarious.
Well, it also that
little baby Kraid
that enables people who played Metroid 1, because Kraid was that size in Metroid 1. So you see that and you go, oh, am I fighting Kraid again? Oh, that's fucking easy. And then, no, he's fucking 4 screens big, and he's like, bah!
Yeah.
It's great.
Honestly, my favorite moment is right at the start, after you get the morph ball and that spotlight hits you. And I was like, oh, this is an enemy, this is a boss, I gotta fight. And I was like shooting at it, and I was like, nothing's happening. Oh, wait, that's an alarm. I just like tripped a trap, and now they know I'm here. And that is such a... And then you go into the previous room, and it's filled with space pirates. Now, that's such a cool storytelling moment.
Did you catch when you went up the elevator?
Catch what?
So when you go down the elevator, there are 2 like skulls.
Oh yeah, they light
up and they face you as you go up the elevator. Like they turn to face you.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's like That's cool.
Yeah.
Like that, just like the little touches.
Yeah, they're watching
are
you.
so interesting.
And
this game.
the section like at the top of the stairs, like the lights are on. Like you go back upstairs and it's like now all the lights are turned on and there's enemies there. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess I haven't said my take. This is pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fucking good game. I don't know if it is my favorite Metroid. I don't know if... I think it probably is, I guess, question mark. I love it. This is probably a 10 out of 10. This ain't an 8 out of 10. And if you know Brogan lore, most things are an 8 out of 10.
Nice,
so
high praise.
This is high praise me saying a 9 or 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I think personally what really works about this game is you can see the technical evolution. When you play Metroid 1 and even Metroid 2, even though we just sang its praises, I feel like this was the title that the Super Nintendo, the hardware finally caught up to the ambition.
Yeah.
And with that, you were able to see these moments happen. And it's not just the moments, it's the sprite work, it's the color, it's the detail, it's the music. It's all of, or the sound effects, the ambiance. It's all of these different elements that really pop. Or the fucking Metroid, or the Samus's ship. Like, fucking everything about it is just so built in and well realized.
It feels like the SNES game.
Yeah.
It feels like, oh, this is what this system is capable of. Even like down to the controller, the button mapping feels so good and like just correct. Like I never had an issue with like running and gunning in this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
still think this is probably the best looking sprite-based game on the Super Nintendo.
Possibly, yeah. I was about to say, I know one person, Tucker Hazel from the Backlog Banner, infamously does not think this game is that great. I think one of his core complaints was Samus's movement. I think Samus's movement is so interesting in this game. I think what's so special about Samus's movement is it's not perfectly fluid, but it's fluid in a way that makes sense once you understand it. It's literally like being inside a fucking metal suit, where it's like when you're starting, you're like, this is a little tanky. This jump feels weird. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. But once you've put enough hours into the game, once you know what she can do, and once you get used to it, you're like, fuck yeah, let's fucking go. I am a tank, and I'm fucking unbeatable.
Yeah.
You know?
I think one of the best things about the movement and the controls in this game is that it solves a problem that a lot of precision platforming games have, which is allowing you to move quickly, but still allowing you to move precisely when you are trying to get to small things. So, and you have several ways of moving about. You've got your regular jump, which is kind of sluggish, but then you have her spinning jump if you are running or walking beforehand, and then you jump. She does her spin thing, and then she can like move in midair more readily and a little bit further back and forth. So you have more fine tuning that you can do. So you can really determine, like if you want to only move a little bit to the left or right after you jump, you can just do a standing jump. And so you have options, and that makes it way easier for you to, we're talking about after we come up from getting the morph ball, when you go up that huge column, and there's all those little purple platforms. Like if you just do a standing jump, it's really easy to not fall all the way down to the bottom. And in a lot of games, like, not so much Mario, but other games like that, and Mario to a lesser extent, it can be hard to hit really small things when you're at a run. And I find that Samus's ability, like her movement in this game, allows for like way more precision than you would have in a lot of other platforming games.
Another really good example is the fucking Shine Spark. We'll get to the weird tutorial in a moment.
Oh, yeah.
But the Shine Spark is a really good example of precision platforming through the run, or the dash, I should say, at that point, that really fucking works.
Yep.
And it's so satisfying when you land it. And you're like, fuck yeah, did I just break this? No, I didn't. It's built in.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I could definitely see someone complaining about the movement in this game if they were backtracking a lot, if they weren't sort of stumbling across the game's secret areas, secret items, the missile upgrades and stuff, like as they were intended to. And if you're backtracking a lot, I could see some sections being difficult. Like the once you get the ice beam and you have to go up that area where you're freezing the little UFO dudes to turn them into platforms. Yeah. Like that, I only had to do that twice, right? Yeah. If I had to do it more times, I probably would have found it frustrating, but there was never a need for it because I had already found a way to bypass that, or I had gotten all the secrets in that area. Yeah. And that was another thing where I think, people sort of talk about like Metroid moments where you get stuck and you don't know what to do and you just end up shooting every block in the room. Mm-hmm. I never really ran across those here. It was always like, I don't know how. It was always very well communicated what I was meant to do, or at the very least that there were destructible blocks in an area.
Yeah, I think the only one that I have, there's like in Symphony of the Night, it's the clock thing. I always tell new players that like, oh, there's a secret passage in the clock room on every other minute. Like without that information, you're fucked. Yeah. I think the only time I ever worry about that in Super Metroid is something that is still shown within the game through environmental storytelling, and that is super bombing the one glass hallway to break it.
That's like one of the best gaming moments ever, I think.
That's like big brain 500 IQ platforming shit. Yeah. And it is shown through the broken thing, and like at a certain point in time you do start like, because honestly I stopped shooting things, and if I do like just want to see a secret or whatever, I super bomb a screen sometimes just to see like if anything happens. Yeah. And that's like one of the it's such a great moment. Yeah.
It helps that super bombs and all of your expendable ammunition are very plentiful. You don't really... I can only think of one time I really needed to farm, and it was like right before Ridley. Yes. And that's because I fought Ridley without the screw attack. Yeah. So I was kind of trapped in that area with the yellow space pirates, and I just needed to like grind them for a bit till I had enough health and weapons to go fight Ridley. Yeah. I wouldn't really hold that against the game. That was a little bit on me. I fought the boss you were supposed to do for the screw attack. Then I died, and I was like, well, what's off to the right then? Oh, yeah, and then just went all up there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I want to highlight something. I don't know if I highlighted it in the Fusion thing. I love how Metroid does upgrades. I think this is one of the things I chose not to talk about when Brian was shit-talking Castlevania. I think the way they do loot/reward systems is very interesting per those two games. I think Castlevania does it in a very RPG sense of like leveling up and getting loot and planning things, and that can be cool, but there's something visceral and very like innate of like, fuck yes, I want 5 more missiles, even though I already have fucking 90. Yeah. Let's go. Let's do another 5. Because it feels so good to have more arsenal. And it makes immediate sense. It's an immediate upgrade. It's tangible. Meanwhile, half the time in Castlevania or any other RPG, Dark Souls does this, Elden Ring does this. You walk around, you beat a hard boss, or you go somewhere. Yeah, it's cool. But when you pick something up, it's probably an item you're not going to use. Yeah. And in that sense, it can be fun if you really appreciate it in that way. But Super Metroid is more universally a constant good reward.
That's one of the things. That's one of the biggest things that I love about this game, and it's one of the reasons why I hold this up as one of the best games ever. Is the progression system in this game is not the Doom. Oh, pick up the red key, pick up the yellow key. Everything you get is another thing for you to use either in combat or in your traversal. Like you...
Well, isn't that like the foundation of like the Metroidvania genre? Because I've always associated that with you unlock new paths through mechanics, not because you have new keys.
Not every game in this genre does it, and basically, I don't think any of them do it as well as Super Metroid.
No, I can't think of any other that, like, really got me to use my full arsenal like this.
There's no point in the game where you can't use almost everything you have. Like, the X-ray beam and the grappling hook might not be useful in combat, but you're always going to be able to use your power bombs. You're always going to be able to use all your other stuff. If you're dodging enemy, like, boss attacks, you can go into the morph ball to be a smaller target. Like, you can always use all of your stuff. The stuff that you get is always useful, whether it means that you just can unload more missiles on bosses, or you can use missiles on regular enemies and just tear through them faster, and then when they die, they'll leave you more missiles to pick up. So yeah, that is something that I really like. I don't like that disposable, oh, I picked up a silver sword. Oh, I picked up a silver sword +1. Now my silver sword is useless. Like
or I'm already over leveled for this fucking thing I don't need.
Yeah.
I also want to say, I guess now is the time to say the tutorial thing. I really like when you get something and in the next room or in 2 rooms later through the natural progression, there's a way to play with the item, or in the advanced techniques such as wall jumping or shine sparking, they literally show little animals and they're doing it. And it's not telling you, hey, you know, do this. Press this button to do that. Instead, you're just seeing it done.
Yeah.
And it's literally like fucking how we do it in real life. You see someone do it, and you're like, oh, I guess I can do that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
and
awesome.
You do it. It's fucking great.
That is part of the environmental storytelling that really works.
Mm-hmm.
The wall jumping is one of my bugbears with the game.
Oh my god!
Wall jumping's good, Murph. I think this is a bad thing.
I have heard,
wall jumping is the best wall jumping in any game.
I have heard it works better on original hardware. It just didn't. I just couldn't get it to execute consistently, and the one, like, mandatory wall jump in the water area Meridia. I had a horrible time with that, and I think what made it worse is, like, 2 rooms later, they do wall jumping utilizing the grappling hook, and that felt way more organic and doable to me.
Huh. Okay, so in Meridia, I'm gonna get into it. In Meridia, when you're underwater, the wall jumping is slightly timed differently. It's not super different, but it is a little different.
I was good at wall jumping up the same wall rather than alternating.
Yeah, which is something that they took away the ability to do in subsequent Metroid games, which sucks.
See, like, you compare it to... fucking memory unlocked. My favorite Super Nintendo game is Mega Man X. Anyways,
another excellent choice. That's another 10.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But that being said, I think those are 2 good examples of different philosophies of wall jump. I think what I liked about Super Metroid's wall jump is it's hard. It is hard. It's a very specific timing and it's a very specific method, but it is more organic and realistic and grounded. Whereas fucking Mega Man's X's wall jump is fucking, you can just fucking mash that shit. Who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, I one of the things I wanted to talk about before, I mean, I definitely want to get into, like, the hidden abilities and stuff like that, but learning that moveset early on lets you sequence break and jump the power curve, which is, like, one of my favorite things to do in games ever. So
you're a person that likes to break games.
Yes. If you are good at the wall jump, you can get the spacer beam early. You can get the wave beam early. You can get the ice beam early. You can use the ice beam and your wall jump to get the super bombs early. Like, and you can do that to like just absolutely dog walk some of these early bosses. It's awesome.
I could definitely see if I was like younger and had did they re-release this on the GBA? Was it like the one SNES game they didn't? Because I know like Link to the Past.
Think they did.
Like,
they
the
did.
Mario
Yeah,
Advance.
they did. Yeah, they didn't do that.
Okay, I could definitely see myself, like, if I was replaying this game multiple times, unlocking, like, that realization, like, wait, if I just play this well, I can get this early. Yeah. And I do like it when games give you that capacity to do that sort of thing. And that the devs sort of, like, allow it and account for it. That's so cool.
There's a lot of stuff you can get early if you're good at the wall jump.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in Fusion, if you skip, they'll catch it and they know you did it and they'll say no.
Yeah.
That is like
nonsense.
is the difference. Yeah. I still like Fusion. Fusion's a good game. Anyways, I wanted to say a story element I really like. I like in these games when you realize like something deep, like an oh shit moment. And the oh shit moment was realizing that the space pirates were trying to make Metroids. Like fabricating them or whatever. And that's like the oh shit, we gotta stop this right the fuck now.
Yeah.
And like and when you build up to the ending, I guess we should talk about the bosses in general before the ending. I think all of the bosses are great. I said this in the Fusion one because Fusion has a little bit more of a deliberate boss play. But even then, Super Metroid has a rhythm to the bosses, and Ridley's is a little bit more messy on purpose for like the rivalry Ridley and Samus have. You know?
Yeah. Ridley was the only one I had to do more than twice.
It's messy. Whereas the others
Ridley
have like
is
a
hard.
rhythm to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have, like the others have a rhythm to it, and you're like, okay, I get it. This is a video game ass boss. Whereas Ridley is still a video game, still very typical, and there's moments where like, oh, I can diagonal shoot, or I can, do.
But I did on my last attempt. I did beat Ridley with like 3 health left. I had no more missiles, no more bombs. Just a lucky charge shot killed him, and that was so gratifying. What I like is that a lot of bosses like sort of signpost their weaknesses in ways where it's not like coming out and being like, hey, do this, but like the 2 bosses in Meridia, the snake has green eyes. You know what else you shoot that it's like weak to super missiles? Everything else you use a super missile on is green.
Yep.
So I just immediately, I was like, my attacks aren't doing any damage, missiles aren't doing any damage. Oh wait, his eyes are green. I wonder if, and that's right, and it is. The other boss, that thing, the water fetus.
One of the best little hidden things. So good.
Is the little wall panels have green gems in them. Shoot them with a super missile, and they open up the grapple points that you use to insta-kill it.
Awesome.
And then its children mourn it. There's a lot of like, this game's like quietly brutal in spots, isn't it? Just like Samus is leaving behind orphans, and then she blows up the planet.
Well, I mean, she doesn't blow up the planet, but
fair, but yeah.
But also, I mean, it's not just that. There's more environmental storytelling. We talked about Baby Kraid earlier. After you kill Baby Kraid, as you're going to the actual Kraid boss door, there's like a dead human there.
Yes. Yeah.
And as you walk up, like the little bugs and things that are eating them,
it's like weird big bacteria or
fly
some
away.
Shit.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of the Resident Evil 1 remake, where it's sort of playing on the player's knowledge of the prior title.
Yes. Yeah, I can
he's
see that.
showing on his Steam Deck. He's got RetroArch enabled. Are you just going to 100% it in the time it takes us to finish this episode?
Absolutely. No, I wanted to pull this up because this is, like, you want to talk about atmosphere? This scene right here with the rain and the lightning, and then you go inside and you can still hear the rain, but it's more faint. It's just, it's gorgeous.
So
I love it.
But the comparison I want to make to Resident Evil Remake is it's sort of this game isn't a remake of 1, but it's set in the same map as Metroid 1, right?
Yes.
And it plays with your knowledge. You, much like Resident Evil 1 Remake, you head down that one hallway, and you're expecting the dogs to attack, but instead the window just cracks. And it's the next time you go through that hallway that the dogs attack.
Yes.
It's sort of like in this, where it's like, oh, there's Kraid, he's just a little baby.
So-
or you walk, like, one of the first areas you go through is the
Mother Brain.
final area with
Yes.
Mother Brain.
Yes.
That is Samus basically lands where she takes off when she beats the first Metroid game.
Yeah.
And then she's coming
That's
back
so fun.
in through the exit.
That's so fun.
And you get down, and when you go, you talked about the area where the enemies pop back up after you pick up the morph ball. You walk through the empty like glass case where Mother Brain was. And the
Yeah.
things that you blew up, which they've now, spoilers, they've moved to another place, to Turian.
Yeah.
But
You spoiled it.
yeah, I can't believe that I've just spoiled this game.
Or even just, like, the psych out with, like, what Mother Brain really
Yeah.
is in
Yeah.
this game.
Yes.
Yep.
That's,
Oh my
like, a
gosh.
cool reveal.
Yes.
Or the revelation of what
horrific.
the
It's
baby
scary.
Metroid is now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, talk about payoffs, heartbreaking payoffs. We talked about environmental storytelling, which is something that I now go to the Souls games for because there's not that many games that do it that well, and FromSoft is really good at it. But yeah, you go into so many areas, and they will, something will happen. It'll be like, oh, you go into Brinstar and everything's like green and lush. You go into Norfair and everything's like burnt and everything. You go into Turian and it's all technological. There's a lot of beeping. There's a lot of stuff that's zapping you from the corners, little cannons and stuff. You walk into that first room and there's just sand and dust. And then you see these little dusty shapes of really powerful enemies that you fought before. And you walk past them, and even just walking past them, they just collapse into nothingness. And then the Metroid comes off. You see this really dangerous animal or creature that you fought before that's only vulnerable sometimes, and you have to fight with the plasma beam, the most powerful beam that you have. And it hops in, and then just the Metroid pops in and just absolutely dustifies it. Thanos snaps it.
And you're next.
And you're next.
I think a really good example. We go back to this game a lot, dear listener, because of how great it is missed. I think a lot of the solutions in world here is tactile. A really good thing I love is the fucking ship. You go into the fucking ship after you get the grappling hook, and the power's out. And it has to connect in your brain. I have to turn the fucking power back on before I save.
Yep.
It's essential shit like that just really fucking works.
Oh, the
also
ship is
there's
the ship is haunted.
I love that bit.
The ship is haunted. Always has been.
Yeah.
And just I kind of wish I had that experience of playing Metroid 2 and getting to that ending where you find the baby Metroid, and then getting that payoff in this game. I think Metroid is... I should have brought this up in the Variety Minute. Metroid is kind of like Zelda in a few ways from a storytelling perspective, where it's I think the majority of designers at Nintendo don't give a crap about the overarching story, but there is one sicko on the story team
that cares.
Who is it cares and has ingested all the lore and leaves these little payoffs all about.
Yeah, and it's Sakamoto himself. No, guys, I want to defend / criticize the worst boss, but also the best boss.
Okay.
Which is Crocomire. Crocomire is the worst boss in the game.
Oh,
But
my sweet boy.
he's also the fucking
Crocomire's so
best.
funny though.
Yeah, wow.
His name's Crocomire.
but he does this little thing when you hit him.
Right. My favorite bit is the skeleton fake out.
Oh,
the skeleton fake out
That's great.
is so fucking good.
So good.
10 out of 10.
And
Wow.
then the little bone rattling sound as he falls down to the ground.
Oh my God.
How did he get there?
His skeleton that had no bones or anything like that And no way.
He was too angry to die.
He was too angry to die, but not angry enough to fight.
Yeah. Oh, pour one out for Crocomire.
Pour one out for Crocomire, the boy.
Oh, man.
Another one of those, like, little subversions. I love that the first boss is a Chozo statue.
Oh, yes.
That's a cool, creepy fake out because it makes you question every single one of those motherfuckers you see throughout the rest of the game.
It's like a mimic chest.
Yep. And there is one where you do have to, like, morph ball into, so he walks the morph ball. Dude. Oh, that's so fun.
That's when you're getting the gravity suit, baby.
Oh, so good.
And you become Purple Samus. The
best.
The drippiest Samus there is.
Can I say this? I don't... again, my experience with the franchise is limited, but I've played enough. I don't like it when a Metroid game only has one suit.
It's not right.
Yeah, you got it.
It's not right.
You gotta... Because that's like... Those are the substantial upgrades. You do feel the
difference. It's a visual change.
Yes.
Her silhouette even changes. Particularly in the first one. Now, the thing is, if Samus only has one suit, the problem is that a lot of times it'll be like the Varia suit or something, and it's like, nah, it needs to be the yellow one if you're going to only have one. But yeah, there are, like, in Fusion she only has one, which stinks. There's a story reason for that, but I don't care. And then anyway, yeah, but Super Metroid is the best with that, I think, because you get, and your suits, like Bro said, like, they give you big upgrades. You get the Varia suit, you can go into hot areas. You get the gravity suit, you can move freely in water, and you can go in lava. Dope.
Big deal. Huge.
Yeah. And it's purple.
That's something. I like the purple in this game. That's where the color stands out to me, man.
Yeah.
The color and art direction is so pretty in the weirdest colors. I think if this was any other fucking game, I would be like, fuck this. This is ugly. But it's not. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
how
it just
to
uses it's a great use of contrasts.
Mm-hmm.
Like how, like, once you get the ice beam, your beams really stand out against the background. They're this vibrant neon blue. The same is true for, like, the grappling hook.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's very good. There's a bee.
I was doing the grappling beam, like the little. I love the sound effects. It's great.
Brian has a future in Police Academy 7.
Oh, speaking of which, I should do.
I think they've already done that.
Speaking of which, I should do this.
Okay, Brian, let me ask you, as the Metroid fan of all time, the Metroid you got an item sound versus the Zelda you got an item sound.
Versus.
Listeners, you can't see this. His eyes roll back in his head each time he does one of these.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm channeling Gunpei Yokoi on that one. Yeah, I'm so sorry. R.I.P. to a legend. But yeah, I think the Samus one is better, but I understand the arguments for the Zelda one.
No comment.
It's very close. Like, I think this is like a 10 or like a 100 versus a 99 thing.
I think the issue with the Zelda one is it happens too much. They use it every time you see it. If you turn over a fucking rock and there's a Korok, thankfully it's yahaha.
Yeah.
But otherwise, in this example, it would be like, you know what I mean? Like, it just happens so often that it's meaningless.
Every time you hear that sound in Super Metroid, you're getting something big.
Yes, it's meaty.
You just got the charge beam, which totally changes the way you play the game. You just got the gravity suit or something. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask this. This is also tied to our Variety Minute. The franchise peaked here on its third game. Do you think the issue of why they haven't replicated it is because Super Metroid is just sort of untouchably perfect, it's lightning in a bottle, or is there a design ethos here they just haven't gone back to?
I think the answer to that question is both. I feel I have a big problem, and this is something I've talked about a lot on my show and other shows that I've guested on. But one of my biggest problems with Souls games imitators is that they don't understand. They take the wrong lessons away. They don't understand what's great about Souls. What's great about Souls is not that it's hard. What's great about Souls is that it rewards you for paying attention and being patient. That's what's great about Souls. What's great about Metroid is atmosphere, graphics, music, the feel of moving through the world, the variety of enemies, the interesting ways that you can fight bosses, cool secrets, backtracking, ways that you can sequence break. Like, these are all good things about those, and various other games in the series miss out on one or more of those things. Like, Fusion adds like ledge hanging to the platforming, which is great. I love it. You can then roll up into a ball, whereas in Super Metroid, you either have to have like jump ball, which is an optional upgrade that people might not even find, because you have to find that in Meridia in like a weird out of the way corner, where you can like actually jump while you are a ball. Other than that, you have to like take a running jump and then jump up into the air and then roll up into a ball in the air and then land on the edge that you want. So like, there are ways in which Fusion advanced that sort of platforming and stuff. But on the other hand, it's way, way, way more linear and handholdy, and it stops you to talk to you about stuff that doesn't matter, which takes away from the atmosphere and the environmental storytelling, because they just tell you the story instead of showing it to you. And, you know, Other M has tons of problems. You know, we talked about Samus Returns. They force feed you the parry mechanic, so you don't have the freedom that you should have in combat to handle things the way that you want to. Dread is better about that. You know, they add it as an option, but it's not as linear. They try to make you think it's linear, but actually a lot of times they'll shunt you into an area and then you can't leave until you get something. Whereas that happens in Super Metroid, it happens in Norfair, but it typically happens where like you'll go into an area and you can't leave until you get the high jump, but you can get the high jump within 5 minutes, you know, and stuff like that. So they cheat to that in Super Metroid, but you actually have a lot more freedom than you think you do. And particularly because you can wall jump up the same wall, which is something they took out in other games. It removes your ability to sequence break or do things in a different order and stuff. And so I do feel like there is a degree to which it just Super Metroid nails all of these things. And they tried to branch out and do things differently, which like I understand as a creative, like you want to experiment with different things, but I feel like they kind of threw some of the baby out with the bathwater, and that's why they haven't been able to kind of recreate these highs.
It's lightning in a bottle, but also it's a particular kind of bottle.
It's lightning in a bottle, but just because they're not trying to capture the same lightning in the same bottle as they were before.
I was gonna say, as a person that doesn't necessarily think Super Metroid's the best Metroid, I do agree with Brian's take here that when they go into different things, they sacrifice other things. I think there are some higher highs in specific areas compared to Super Metroid, but Super Metroid's consistently great at everything. Yeah. Whereas, like, you know, you could go. Let's talk survival horror. You know, there's 2 games or 3 games, I guess, that are really better at survival horror than Super Metroid. I would say, obviously, Fusion with the SAX suit, the Emmy and Dread, but then also, spoiler alert to Murph, at the end of Zero Mission, there is a segment where you play a Zero suit Samus, and you don't have your suit, and you have to hide from pirates. So in those moments, they are experimenting and they are excelling in different ways, completely separate from the other, from what's come before, etc., etc. And I really love that stuff. Or in Metroid Prime, in my opinion, Metroid Prime's specialty, especially the first one, is the world itself, the environment itself, not necessarily the storytelling, but the living and the immersiveness of it, like the helmet, etc., etc. So it's all these elements building into each other, but Super Metroid is able to juggle all the plates.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
If we go for 11 more minutes, you can listen to this podcast in the time it takes to get the best ending in Super Metroid.
Yay. So if you started playing Super Metroid when we started the show, and you finish it before the
Now's
show
your wake
ends,
up call. You should already be fighting Mother Brain.
Yeah, you should.
Let's talk about Mother Brain then. I think it's time.
Hold on. Let
If
me see.
the speedrunner God who's playing this game and listening to us is playing Mother Brain, let's talk about it.
Well, I mean, I'll just say straight up, I've gotten the best ending in this game. I have beaten this game in less than 3 hours. I think my best.
There you fucking.
I think my best time is like an hour 30 or an hour 45.
Next time you play it, listen to this bad boy.
You can play through it twice.
The Mother Brain ending is so much fun. We already talked about the reveal of the giant monster form.
Yeah.
I think the baby.
Wait.
Metroid
Hold on.
coming
Gotta do. Bum 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 bum.
Is this how you rizzed up your
What's
wife? Is this how you rizzed up your wife?
Oh, this is just one of the ways that I did. I got many talents. I'm a man of many talents, Murph.
The baby Metroid has that emotional impact to it. Because I think one of the themes in this game, and I've actually said this in my little 5-second documentary bit in Brendan's thing, is there's a lot of monster-fying a monster and then realizing how important it is in the context of an environment. Like, for instance, in Fusion, the SAX parasite was what the Metroids were fighting against.
Yeah.
The Metroids were created to stop something just as bad, if not
Yeah,
worse.
I'm gonna be real. It's worse.
It's 10 times worse.
Okay. It is interesting that the sacrifice of the baby Metroid, who I'm just now realizing that is the Super Metroid of the title. It's interesting that sacrifice actually did affect me, because I knew it going in. That's like one of the things I know about this game.
Oh, that's a shame.
But
I'm back.
Because I did mention, like, I didn't play Samus Returns. I wasn't there for the birth of the baby Metroid. This is my only experience with that little
But they did show it to you in the intro of the game.
Yes, they do show it in the intro.
Yeah, it's not the same.
And I did have this understanding, like, oh, it imprinted on Samus.
But and you don't have the context of like, oh, I've been hunting these things this entire time, and now there's a baby, and I can't bring myself to kill it.
Also, you don't have the context that the Metroids are actually a really tough enemy.
Yeah.
Like, Metroids themselves, they're hard. And so, like, in other Metroid games, when you get the Ice Beam, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Where it's like, oh, this is a threat. You know what I'm saying?
But then the baby Metroid attacks you, but it gets you down to 1 hit point, but it doesn't kill you, and it just follows you around. And it's like, oh, it did that because it loves me.
It recognizes
It recognizes you in time to not kill you.
And then when it comes in again to save you from Mother Brain, it's that same conclusion. Oh, it's doing this because it loves me. And that's why it works, is because it almost killed you, but it didn't. And now it saves
And this is also something that is revealed in this game that we actually don't know until it happens in the Mother Brain fight. Metroids have always been called parasitic organisms. But at the end of this game, you find out because of what happens during the Mother Brain fight when you get really hurt and the baby Metroid shows up to help you, they're not just parasites. They can move energy around. They can give it back as well. So you're at you're about to die, and the baby Metroid comes in, latches onto you, and pumps energy into you. And
so much fucking energy.
Yeah.
It becomes a victory lap.
Yeah,
right.
Because it takes the hyper beam, like it takes the ability of the Mother Brain to do the hyper beam, the super powerful attack that she's been just kicking your shit in with, and then gives it to you, and then you can go into the menu afterwards, and you can see like all of your beams, your charge beam, your wave beam, your spacer beam, your plasma beam, your ice beam are all replaced, and there's one beam, and it says hyper beam, and you just hold it, and it just. You've been shooting Mother Brain this entire time, and she's just like tanking the hits. You hit her with the hyper beam once in the head, she screams and her head recoils back. Like, it's awesome.
The animation on that boss is so good. The momentum, the sense of like weight is so good.
She's drooling after she's like a desiccated husk. She like slowly starts coming back to life and getting up, and like just drool coming out of her mouth. It's immaculate.
So good. And then, okay, I wanted to say this. Murph compared it earlier to Resident Evil. I love victory laps.
Yeah, me too.
I love it when it's like, the game is over now. Now you're just fucking winning. Like, you've already done the hard part. Now let's fucking give you the payoff.
Yeah.
And this game is not only is it beating Mother Brain, but it's getting the fuck off that planet. Yeah. Get the fuck out of there as soon as you can, and then it blows up. Thank fucking God. And it feels so great when you do it.
Now, did you guys save the animals?
No, animals died. Animals died.
I wouldn't have even known. I know saving the animals was a thing because I watched GDQs. Yeah. I've never actually watched a Metroid speedrun, but I know it's a meme.
Yes.
I kind of like looked around for like if I were to save the animals, where would I go? And I think I just need more familiarity with the map.
They're not that far off the beaten path, but you do have to kind of know where they are.
Yeah, so it did get to a point where I was like, I've got like a minute left. I better book it to the ship.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The animals are frozen in fusion. Like, or I think aren't they frozen, or do they have their own area? Something happens to the animals.
They have a little cutscene. They're on your ship. They like signal you. I remember that cutscene. Yeah. Because it's like one of them waving into the camera. It's one of the little wall jump gnomes.
Gnomes.
Fun fact: they actually fly your ship back to you to save you.
Oh wow.
Man, they're intelligent.
It's real.
I mean, they can wall jump better than Murph, so probably.
I mean, I can wall jump better than Murph too. So you don't have to be a hyper intelligent animal to do that. You can be a dummy like me.
Oh man. Do we have final thoughts?
I am far more interested in playing more Metroid games than I have ever before.
Nice.
Like, now I'm, like, deeply curious about the rest of the franchise. I kind of want to play Other M, just to know what the deal with that is. Because I know, doesn't that directly follow Super Metroid?
No.
Maybe. I don't, dude, they're not actually good about, like connecting to each other. This is probably, Super Metroid's probably the best one, because it also tells you what happens in Metroid 2. I guess Fusion kind of does, but otherwise, it's
if you want to move straight up, so Metroid 1, the best way to play that is Metroid Zero Mission, which is the remake. Metroid 2, the best way to play that is the 3DS game Metroid Samus Returns, I think.
You could play AM2R, but I don't like AM2R.
You could play AM2R, which is a fan-made game. Super Metroid, that is Metroid 3. Metroid 4 is Fusion, and then Metroid 5 is Dread. So if you're just playing through the like main story games, that's the way you want to go.
The real Metroid.
Yes. If you want to play the numbered Metroid games, it's Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Samus Returns, Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Dread. So if you want to do more of this, those are the ones you need to play.
All right. Well, I think if you're currently playing the game, now's your warning sign. You should already be on the ship. but I think we're going to start signing off. So, Brian, where can we find more of you, and is there anything, like, in particular you want to plug?
If your listeners can have even stayed here long enough to listen to me, and they want more, they can catch me. I mean, kudos to you for wanting more. There's not that many people who can tolerate that. You can find me every week on the Platformers Podcast, which is a show that I run with other people in the video games industry. It goes up on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. My buddy Chris Cornelise edits it and posts it now, so it doesn't always go up the same or next day like it used to. But we stream that on Twitch at twitch.tv/RIBNAX. Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Central Time. And you can follow me on Twitter at Ribnax, RIBNAX. You can also follow me at Backlogged, where I track like a lot of the games that I'm playing and do little micro reviews. I am Brian Barnett, BrianBarnett on Backlogged, and I'm also that on Blue Sky, although I don't really post there that much yet. I also write for IGN and GameSpot. And I'm about to do my onboarding for Kotaku, where I'll be writing some stuff. I'll be doing some guides for them about Baldur's Gate 3 and stuff. The latest thing that I published, I think the latest two things that I published were IGN preview for Cataclysmo, which is a great game, and a Marvel vs. Capcom fighting game collection preview and feature and producer interview that I did at EVO, which is live at GameSpot. So,
is there any way to promo your band, or is there no?
Oh, my band. Okay. I am in a band. I have written 5 songs with this new band, but the band has not actually been announced yet. So,
okay.
Just
but he incorporates various sound effects from Super Metroid into the music. It's a lot like scat.
No, I did not. However, it is a concept band based on the fiction novel that I am writing, and the songs are all based on that. My favorite band and the other guy, Colton Majors, who is writing all of the music, both of our favorite bands are Coheed and Cambria. So a lot of it is kind of similar to that, but with kind of a different vibe. We've also been compared to like early Red Jumpsuit Apparatus and Seosin and stuff like that. So if you like prog, but you also like melodies and harmonies instead of screaming and stuff, like, be on the lookout. Definitely follow me on Twitter, and I will be promoting the heck out of that band once our stuff actually goes live. We're about to go into the studio to record a lot of the stuff, and then we're going to start playing shows. We're going to start putting our music up online, and you'll be able to check that out. But yeah, I sing for that band. I've been a drummer for like 25 years. No, 30 years now. Wow. I've been a drummer for 30 years. This is the first band that I'm actually the frontman for, and it's awesome. So.
All right, Murph, what is our next video game, and what's our next guest?
You hold on. We need to plug ourselves.
What? No, we don't. Listen, if you've been here for 3 hours, no, go ahead.
Listen, on our YouTube channel, we're putting up more content all the time. We just put up a long video making not just our perfect, the perfect MVC4 roster with no hot takes or missing elements whatsoever.
You know.
Yes. Given to us by the gods. Check out my other podcast called This Podcast Is a Bad Idea, the show with the name that is still funny. Actually going to be recording another new episode of that this weekend, where we will be talking about the Onceler fandom.
Oh, no. That's scary.
But, next episode, we're going back, and it's another returning guest. We're getting the band back together. One may call it a band of thieves. We have the brainy guy, we have the muscly guy, and we have the Cooper, the Sly Cooper, because we're going to be doing Sly 2, Band of Thieves, with our guest, Acer Aesthetics, who joined us long ago for the Bioshock 2 episode.
Bioshock 2, very good game.
But a goodie. Oh, and Acer Aesthetics is a great YouTuber, so we're excited. All right, everybody, I think we're playing out. We're good.
All right.